This is Atomic Shinobi and today I'm going to narrate first part of what if Naruto was sent to another dimension by Minato during 3 years training trip. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Not wasting no more time, let's start the story.
Naruto inquired, so where to first arrow? Sennin. Since leaving the Leaf Village for Naruto's training trip, the two had been on the road for a few hours. He neglected to inquire about their destination because Naruto had been bouncing around talking about all the new jutsus he would learn in 3 years. They were walking along a path through a verdant hilly region after emerging from a forest. Jiraiya grunted, "Show some respect, brat. I thought the jutsu craze would keep him busy for at least another day. The child is truly becoming more intelligent." Naruto repeated, yeah, whatever arrow. Sennin. Where are we going?" In the middle of his statement, he paused, alert. "If you must know, we are heading to the Temple of the Fire Monks just outside the eastern entrance of Fire Country. They will help turn that crap brawling style you have into actual taijutsu." When Naruto realized this, he lowered himself into a ready stance. He scanned the space, looking for anything that didn't belong there. With his tone no longer playful, Naruto asked, "What's going on?" Naruto followed Jiraiya's gaze to the crest of the large hill behind the small hill in front of them as he nodded up ahead. He could see 4 figures approaching them at a leisurely pace. As 4 figures emerged over the hillside, one of them said, "Looks this will be easy pickings." Yeah? Now that the red clouds were in full view, they could see that the 4 figures were wearing cloaks. Akatsuki sprang into both Toad summoners' minds. "You said we had 3 years," a frenzied Naruto murmured. Despite Jiraiya's skill, Naruto was aware that he couldn't defeat 4 of these men at once. They had to figure out a way to get back to the village. Even though these 4 were powerful, they couldn't compete with the entire military force of a secret village. This is terrible. While Naruto withdraws to the village and waits for the Toads to call me back to their realm, I might be able to stall them if I can activate Sage Mode. Jiraiya started gesturing to Naruto, thinking, "I'll have him use the escape plan we came up with after our last run-in with these guys." As the 4 Akatsuki arrived at the top of the hill in front of them, Jiraiya asked, "Plans change, kid? It's the nature of the business. Deidara, Kakuzu, Itachi, and Kisame. Isn't this overkill for one kid?" Kisame grinned and said, "The kid is easy pickings. We came here for you, old man. We do not come across one as skilled as yourself quite often, Jiraiya the Sannin. If you fight well enough, perhaps I will replace one of my hearts with yours." Kakuzu responded. Itachi said, "Naruto-kun, come with us and your sensei can live." Jiraiya yelled, "I think you guys are underestimating us. Now Naruto," as he slammed his hands on the ground to summon Naruto after going over the hand signs. Smoke suddenly filled the room as Naruto made the Cage Bushin hand signal, blinding their opponents. When it cleared, Jiraiya was seen sitting with 2 elderly Toads in his shoulder, 2 replicas of him standing to his right, and almost 1,000 Narutos, all of whom were Toads, occupying the space behind him. They said the kid had a lot of chakra, but this is insane. "Perhaps after the extraction is done I'll use his heart as well," said Kakuzu. Kisame boasted, "All this chakra has Samahata exited for a good meal." One of the Toads on Jiraiya's shoulder remarked, "Such disrespectful children, ma." In response, the other said, "Yes, we should help Jiraiya-chan teach them some manners. It seems we have no choice. Kill the Sannin and capture the Jinchuriki." Itachi gave the order. Jiraiya shouted, "Move it," as he confronted Kakuzu and Kisame, while his clones went after Itachi and Deidara. The Toads and Naruto clones sprang into action, all running through the forest they had just left in different directions. In an attempt to defeat the clone army from above the forest, Deidara called forth a clay bird and flew into the air, but Jiraiya's clone diverted him from Naruto's escape with a few fireballs. As Jiraiya's clone came toward him, Itachi swung his spinning Mangekyo Sharingan eyes down at all the clones before pulling out a kunai and hurling it at one of the Toads that was running away with the throng of clones. The Toad was pinned to a tree after it struck right through its right shoulder. It turned out to be the real Naruto in a puff of smoke. When Itachi suddenly materialized in front of him, everything went dark, and he started to leak Kyuubi chakra. Lifting the boy into the air, Itachi took off the kunai. Naruto was engulfed by the clay bird that Deidara rode by on. The Jiraiya clone was forced to dissolve into mud when the Itachi in front of it turned into a swarm of ravens. Itachi turned back to the battle with Jiraiya and commanded, "Take him back to base so leader can place him in stasis for the extraction. I will help finish off Jiraiya." As he took off, Deidara grumbled, "Sure, just take all the fun, yeah. I hope the leader doesn't plan to capture the rest this way. It would be too easy." Jiraiya screamed, "Damn it! Naruto!" as he attempted to flee to save him, but was blocked by 2 Kakuzu masks. As he made Jiraiya duck Samahata's swing, Kisame screamed, "Nothing personal, old man, like you said before, it's just the nature of the business." Naruto slowly woke up, grimacing in agony. He could only recall Itachi showing up in front of him before nothing else happened, and he had no idea how long it had been since he was knocked out. When he attempted to move, his mouth gagged and he was paralyzed from the neck down. Strange black, cylindrical rods were driven into his arms and legs. He saw himself on the middle of a big round stone tablet, shirtless and bound, when he looked down. A dark-haired man with an orange spiral mask and Akatsuki robes was leaning over him, gazing down at his bare seal. The sealing abilities of the Yondaime Hokage are truly unrivaled. If we had not taken down Jiraiya and utilized the notes from his instructions on how to tweak the seal, we might never have managed to crack this thing, the man said as he rubbed his chin. Damn it. No arrow. Sennin. Naruto grunted, thinking. He thought of the last pictures he had of Jiraiya looking down at the Akatsuki. Yes, we had to take him out for obvious reasons, but don't blame us. Your own village sold you 2 out, well, not the whole village, just the council. They figured they could pull a fast one on me by simply coughing you up in exchange for not attacking their precious village. They figured we couldn't crack the seal, but they didn't figure on us taking down Jiraiya and stealing his knowledge. What fools. Don't worry, one of my associates has a grudge against your village. He'll take revenge for you, laughed the man. Naruto simply had a horrified, enraged, and defeated expression. Abruptly, a glimmer of defiance and hope appeared in his eyes. I might as well let the fox go and take them all down with me, since I'm going to die anyhow. After attempting to withdraw into his mind to imprison the fox in the sewers, Naruto discovered that he was unable to do so. He started to panic after a few attempts. The man sneered at Naruto, trying to do the classic, I'm talking them down with me. Too bad we already tweaked your seal to cut you off from the Kyuubi completely, good try though. On the edge of Naruto's field of vision, a man with orange hair and facial piercings said, Madara, it's time. Madara backed up a short distance away and said, well, it has been fun, young one, but all good things must come to an end. Have fun on the other side, kid? Look at the bright side, at least you won't be seen as the Kyuubi anymore. Now that he was in front of Naruto, the orange-haired man started to flip through different hand seals before coming to a stop at Ram. A white aura started to emanate from Naruto's black rods. When the seal that was containing the fox turned blue, Naruto realized he was completely paralyzed. When the seal began to spin rapidly and a blue column of chakra emerged from it, Madara exclaimed, good, so it's working after all. The man with the orange hair cried out, what is this? Madara shouted, pain. What's going on? The seal, it's acting on its own. I'm not controlling it, he responded. The Yondaime Hokage's kneeling form was revealed by a puff of smoke as the chakra column subsided. Madara cried out, impossible. You've been inside the seal the whole time. The Yondaime recognized him and said, it's you, the one who sent the Kyuubi. I knew you would come back for it. That's why I added this small addition to the seal at the last minute. A fail. Safe, if you will, to protect my son if need be. You've done well, my son, from now on you won't have to carry this world on your shoulders anymore. My fail. Safe was to send you to another place, a dimension that you will only be able to travel to once and stay there forever. Good luck, Naruto. Know that I'm proud of you and believe in you, he said, looking down at Naruto. I know you're probably angry at me for giving you this burden, but you were the only one I could trust not to abuse this power. He then placed his hand in front of the seal, and it immediately took on a golden glow that quickly spread throughout Naruto's body. As he in pain attacked the Yondaime, Madara yelled, you will not foil my plans again, before phasing through him. As he and Naruto abruptly vanished in a burst of bright light, the Yondaime said, it's too late, my body here is only a chakra construct. Shinigami. Sama allowed my consciousness to appear here because of the contract we made. Madara yelled angrily, damn him. The moon's eye plan ruined. All my plans ruined. Leaning back against the rock he was sitting in front of, Makarov sighed and sipped his ale from the cup he was holding. He made the decision to take a detour through the mountains to visit his old friend Bahamut, the King of Dragons, while he was returning to Magnolia Town. One of Bahamut's mountains served only as a hiding place for the barrels of ale he occasionally stole. He truly needed to relax and enjoy some drinks after spending days putting up with those idiots in the council. Their flagrant disobedience of the council's rules and regulations had put them on his guild's case once more. When he finally had enough of their pointless squabbling, he told them exactly where to put their ridiculous rules before gloating over the fact that Fairy Tail was by far the guild with the highest client satisfaction rating. When he reached for his cup to take another sip, it was empty. The barrel he was drinking from was empty, so he opened another. As he watched Makarov open another barrel, Bahamut remarked, "This ale isn't free, ya no. I'll be expecting 2 barrels of that rum you get shipped in from the eastern port in return." Makarov poured another cup for himself and complained, "Not like you pay for this." Bahamut glared sharply and asked, "What was that?" Makarov tried to shift the conversation by suggesting, "I said even Ignil has adopted a kid to train. What about you? I figure the Dragon King would want to have his own pupil to parade as the toughest mage around. You act like kids just fall out the sky these days. Besides, I won't take in just anybody, I have a reputation to keep up." Bahamut responded with a snort. Yeah, you just don't want anybody cramping your style. Be hard to drink, pick up chicks, and cause mischief while lugging a kid around, replied Makarov. The dragon took another gulp of ale and said, "Exactly, I'm not getting any younger, I've got to make good use of my prime years." A bright flash of white light, coming from high in the sky, diverted the attention of both drinkers. They searched for something that was rapidly falling toward the ground from far above the mountaintops where the light was coming from. When Makarov saw what it was, his eyes grew wide. "It's a person," he exclaimed, lifting his arms to slow their descent by creating a swirl of winds. The person's speed decreases to a float as a result of his actions. Before he could return to the ground, Bahamut had swooped around to catch them on his back. He placed the person on the ground in front of Makarov after grabbing him by the back with his tail as he landed. Makarov stooped to examine them. It turned out that the individual was a young boy with blonde hair and cheeks marked like whiskers. He wore a necklace, had some odd markings on his stomach, and was shirtless. He checked the boy's extremities and discovered what appeared to be stabbing wounds on his arms and legs after confirming that he was breathing and had a steady pulse. Makarov examined the boy's body to check for additional minor wounds and remarked, "The boy looks like he got roughed up pretty good, but he appears to be fine." Looking back into the sky where the boy had appeared, Bahamut asked out loud, "Where did he come from?" "Well, you said you wouldn't take just anybody, so this kid decided to just fall out of the sky for you. Ready-made so he wouldn't cramp your style," laughed Makarov. Bahamut exclaimed, "HMPH, we don't know anything about him, he could be some weakling." Makarov poured some water down the boy's throat after bandaging the wounds as best he could. The child started to stir as if this had given him a boost. His eyes blinked open abruptly, and he sat up to look around. When his gaze fell upon Makarov, he appeared to blurt out the first thought that entered his head. "Hey old man, this must be the fire temple, right? Where's Arrow, Senin? He must have put me in a genjutsu to knock me out cause I was annoying him. It was crazy. I got captured by the Tamiz brother and then this weird dude in an orange mask was talking to me. For an evil guy was weird trying to act all nice and all. What's so nice about trying to kill me, ya no? Oh. And then the Yondaime appeared and he was like, 'I'm your dad.' I was like, 'What the hell, man? You put a demon in your son's gut.' But then I was like, 'Holy crap. I'm freaking son of the Yondaime. I rule.' Then I woke up. Hey, do you guys have any ramen? Whoa. A dragon summon awesome? I wish I didn't have toads now. Dragons are way cooler. Ha. The Teme owes me money. He said there was no dragon summons." Naruto just rambled on and on, only to finally to be uttered by Bahamut. Shaking his fist at the dragon, Naruto exclaimed, "Hey, what are you laughing at? I don't care if you are a super cool dragon. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, and I'll still kick your ass." Makarov snickered and Bahamut laughed even harder at this. "Don't mind him, he's had too much to drink. Hey, anyway, I'm not quite sure about what you just said, but you just happened to fall out of the sky not 15 minutes ago," Makarov responded. Naruto looked perplexed and said, "What are you talking about, old man? Where's Arrow, Senin?" Makarov said, "Maybe I can clear things up." Placing his hand on Naruto's head, Makarov searched through his thoughts and memories. In order to tap into the connection as well, Bahamut had rested the tip of his tail on Makarov's shoulder. Makarov took his hand off Naruto's head and said, "Ah, I see now." With impatience, Naruto questioned, What happened to you was not a dream, my young friend. It was all true. In a stroke of good fortune, your father's seal really did send you here successfully. However, I'm sorry to say that he was correct in there being no way for you to return," he said while observing the child's response. Naruto's face froze as he processed everything. "Damn it, I can't fulfill my promise or become Hokage now. However, being a Hokage means having to make difficult decisions. My permanent absence protects everyone and not just my loved ones, but the entire world from those psychos." A glimmer of resolve returned to Naruto's eyes as he thought, "I have to do it. That's what the old man or even my dad would have done. It's no big deal if this keeps my friends safe, then I'm all for it. Besides, I'm the son of the Yondaime, I can deal with anything, he said with pride. Well said. I guess we should introduce ourselves. This is here his Bahamut the Dragon King, and I'm Makarov, Guildmaster of Fairy Tale. Naruto scratched the back of his head and asked, what the heck is a guild master and a fairy tale? That's right, I should explain this world to you. Makarov began, giving a thorough rundown of the world, mages, guilds, and even the council. Naruto simply stared at him in complete bewilderment after he finished. A perplexed Naruto said, could you say that one more time? Bahamut snorted and plunged in. Let me give this a shot, Makarov. Hey kid, you know those ninja villages in your home world? They're kind of like the guilds in this world. The mages are like ninjas and guildmasters are like the cages. And mages wield magic instead of chakra, said Bahamut. Ah, I get it now, Naruto said, giving a wise nod. How could he possibly understand that? Makarov thought. Inside Naruto's head, behind a knowledge door, a number of Narutos were seated at desks and writing on different scrolls. One of the Narutos leapt to his feet and tossed aside the scroll titled, The New World, that he was working on. Then he picked up a scroll titled, How the World Works, and began simply substituting words like, ninja, for mage, chakra, for magic, and so on. Hey, kid, since you're new here, what do you think about joining my guild? We can offer you exciting jobs that are just like missions. They'll be way better than those boring missions you had to put up with, suggested Makarov. Naruto simply scratched his chin and gazed at Makarov with a focused, intense expression. What? Asked Makarov, who assumed the missions would be an easy sell given the children's disposition. You remind me of old man Hokage, so I'll join. Naruto finally replied with a smile. The child wasn't as simple-minded as he believed, apparently. Bahamut interrupted Makarov as he scratched his chin in a contemplative manner, saying, Great, maybe I could hire a gifted child like you as an apprentice. There will be no need for that. A kid like this is exactly what I was looking for. He's got guts and is tougher than nails. He'll be training under me, said Bahamut. Who says you get to keep him? A young talent like this would do wonders under my tutelage with Fairy Tale. He's a shining example of the true spirit of our guild, replied Makarov. A shadow clone army of Narutos dressed as the third Hokage engaged in combat with a Naruto dressed as Jiraiya riding a dragon in a room behind a door marked, Decision Making, deep within Naruto's mind. I tell you what, you let me take the kid under my wing and I'll let you keep your rum. After he's done he can go join your little guild, said Bahamut. Makarov exclaimed, Deal. But he was secretly thinking, haha, jerk, I keep my rum and get a new guild recruit without having to train him. Wait a minute. You're a dragon, so what exactly will you be teaching me? It's not like you can do human stuff, asked Naruto. Who needs that weak human magic? You will learn to wield the 5 elemental armors crafted from the scales of the most powerful dragons to ever have existed, said Bahamut. You're a pretty lucky kid. Most dragons just grant their pupils the ability of dragon slayer magic, limiting them to 1 element. You'll get 5. The dragon-style requip magic is particularly powerful. Even I've never seen the armors of Wildfire, Torrent, Halo, Hardrock, and Strata in action, explained Makarov. Bahamut was now evaluating Naruto in an effort to gain a clear understanding of his present abilities. I will also help you augment the abilities you already possess. It seems your journey here converted your old chakra into your own brand of magic. It seems your old ninja techniques are now your personal magical style independent of what I will teach you. Yes, I can sense it too. How curious, I wonder if that was a natural occurrence by your arrival or a result of your seal, thought Makarov. I think it was nature balancing him out as the fox's power no longer mingles with his own. Though it still exists inside him, they are now completely independent of one another, said Bahamut. Naruto questioned, does that mean it can break free? No, it is trapped within its own realm inside of you. Also, I no longer sense the malevolence your memories tending to associate with its powers. It's as if its energies have been balanced out, replied Makarov. Naruto said, maybe we should go check it out. We can't do that, for just as the fox cannot reach out to you, you cannot reach out to it. Very curious, replied Bahamut. We can figure all this out later. Come along now, you should come meet the guild before you start your training so you can become an official mage, instructed Makarov. Get him some new clothes too, no more of that orange kid. You do need your clothes to gain attention anymore, your skills will do the talking, said Bahamut. Naruto's stomach rumbled and he said, yeah, whatever. Hey, can we stop for ramen? I'm starving. Makarov put on a straight face and asked, what the hell is ramen? Number ramen. Naruto said with a horrified expression. He screamed, "No!" Makarov and Bahamut burst out laughing. Too simple, they pondered, after 1.5 years. Naruto said, admiring the enormous fairy tale sign as he entered the guild, "I'll never get tired of seeing this place." Bahamut enjoyed sending him back to Fairy Tail occasionally to gain experience through work and break up the routine of constant training. He desperately needed to kick some ass because his training had recently kept him from accepting a job for 4 months. Upon entering, he was confronted by the typical scene he had seen even on his first day there. A massive fight. He muttered, "And people used to call me hyperactive," as he passed the bar and headed straight to the job postings, avoiding being drawn into the altercation. His training under Bahamut had somewhat calmed him down. He now actually took a moment to consider his move before delivering a punch, which frequently caught people off guard. Normally, he would participate in a good fight, but he was eager to get out on a job. When he saw the advertisement for a B-rank position with good pay, he glanced quickly across the wall. When he noticed a second hand reaching for it, he swiftly grabbed it and began reading it. A white-haired girl jumped in his face as he was thinking, "I'm so glad old man Makarov took my ninja experience into account when I got my mage license, allowing me to skip those lame-ass job equivalents to D-rank missions. What do you think you're doing? A punk like you doesn't deserve that job. It's mine," she yelled at him. "Oh no. Not you again," moaned Naruto, referring to the goth clothes, blue eyes, and white hair. This girl Mirajane had been picking fights with him ever since she first saw him. She used to irritate him, but now he just agitates her for amusement. She stabbed him in the chest and said, "What the hell is that supposed to mean, you jerk?" A shiver ran down his spine as he exclaimed, "Not even a crazy bitch like you is going to ruin today. My first mission in 6 months." He turned to face the eyes of a demon who was vying for his soul. "Shit, I said that out loud, didn't I?" he said. Elfman bowed and said a brief prayer behind Mirajane, saying, "It was nice knowing you, man." She cried out, "Die," as he leapt on top of her and smashed him until he was unconscious. As Lasana watched from next to her brother, she shook her head and said, "Mira.Nay always so violent." Mirajane stood a moment later, admiring Naruto's now bruised and bloodied form as she brushed her hands off. She gloated, "Serves you right," until Naruto abruptly transformed into a puff of smoke. Snickering, Naruto said, "I don't have time to play with you today, maybe next time," as he left through the main door. She yelled, "Arg, that bastard, I'm going to kill him." Mira.Nay, if you like him so much you shouldn't be so mean to him all the time, said Lasana. The idea made her turn her nose up. HMPH, who would like a loser like him, she said. But Elfman chose to make fun of her after noticing the faint flush on her face. He soon found himself flying through a wall thanks to her fist. "You usually just insult everyone else as you walk by like they're not worth your time. He's the only one you actually take the time to pick fights with. You're way too obvious." She grabbed a job off the wall and threatened, "Not another word." She stomped off, Lasana at her heels, saying, "Come on Lasana, we'll show that punk who's who around here. I bet that mission sucked anyway." A medium-sized speedboat, driven by an elderly man and his dog, was now transporting Naruto to an island. The old man gave him a discount for the brief sea voyage because he had no other passengers. Wearing a dark red sleeveless shirt, black gloves, a black headband, and black pants with red trim, Naruto leaned over the side of the boat. Around his neck hung Tsunade's necklace. One last time he glanced over the job details. B. Class work levels of threat. Medium payment, 100,000 J. Task. A group of cultists unlawfully took citizens and used them as slave labor, utilizing them to construct the R system, also known as Paradise Tower, in an effort to bring the Black Mage Zeref's spirit back to life. To stop Zeref from rising again, exterminate the cultists, release the enslaved people, and demolish the tower. The amount of work that needs to be done, not the difficulty, makes this a B-class job. The slaves might be eager for retribution if I freed them first, or I could simply flood the tower with shadow clones, or perhaps both. Maybe I can awaken one of these damn armors after at least one good fight. Despite his initial excitement about using the elemental armors, he discovered that it was difficult to awaken his abilities. He picked at the tattoo of the fire symbol that was now visible on his right shoulder. In addition to his fairy tale tattoo on his upper left shoulder, he now had a tattoo on his right arm for each of the 5 armors, but he had not yet learned to wield one. The connecting of the armor's magic with his own was symbolized by each tattoo. Bahamut had repeatedly assured him that the armors are nearly sentient, so when the time is right the armor will come to you, but he was starting to lose patience. Almost 2 years have passed. By now, I ought to be able to wield at least one. The enhancements we've made to my ninja skills will help me get through this, he thought to himself. Oh well, I can't dwell that now, it's mission time. Land ho! The dog responded by barking as the elderly man yelled from his steering wheel. After seeing that they had arrived at the target island, Naruto got up and threw a tip to the elderly man before leaping from the boat and landing on the shore. As he left, he waved over his shoulder and said, "Thanks for the ride, old man." As he turned the boat to return in the opposite direction, he flashed Naruto the fairy tale tattoo on his wrist and said, "No problem, fairy tale looks out for one another." The paper he was holding for the job abruptly disappeared into thin air as Naruto walked away from the shore, thinking, "No wonder I didn't see an engine. He was using his magic to power it. What the devil? So this is Paradise Tower, what a bunch of nut jobs," he yelled, startled, before shaking his head and turning to face the enormous building in front of him. "Okay, I'll free the slaves first, and then I'll destroy this place." The tower's main gate stood in front of him, and he used a Rasengan to break through it, exposing a number of paths and tunnels. He created a number of clones to look for the place he wanted, and after a few minutes of patient waiting, one of his clones dispelled the gate and told him where the slaves were, and he went down the tunnel's stairs to the far right. There was a creaking sound as the cell gate suddenly swung open, and the slaves looked up to see the shaky figure of a shackled Urza entering. The slaves were sitting in the cells, quietly agonizing over their situation. "Hey, you're all right, Nae-san," one of the kids cried out. "Look at her, idiot. How can you claim she's all right?" an older boy answered. Before an elderly man interrupted, another boy said, "What about Gerard? He said he was going to get past those guys to save you." "Just let her sit quietly, poor girl must have suffered a lot in the punishment chamber." Urza simply continued to move forward slowly without answering any of them. The elderly man shook his head to stop him, but he continued, saying, "But what about Gerard? I bet he got caught and taken in her place. Those jerks. I'm eager to return home," one of the sobbing kids screamed. "Why is there so much noise in here?" one of the cultists shouted as he and another guard broke into the cell. "Slow down, Sho," as he attempted to console the child, a boy begged. The elderly man who was also attempting to assist said, "It's okay Sho-kun, Gramps is here. Before I cut your tongue out, you little whelp, you had better stop talking," as one of the guards yelled. He started choking and gripped his throat, and everyone watched in shock as blood poured from his neck and the tip of a knife protruded from the front of his throat before he fell to the ground, dead. "What on earth was that?" the other guard screamed, and then his eyes rolled up the back of his head as he fell, revealing 3 kunai knives protruding from his back as his body hit the ground. A voice said, "2 assholes down, plenty more to go." They all turned to see Naruto's figure with more knives in his hands and blood splattered on his clothes. Following footsteps, a group of 20 cultists charged around the corner and confronted the scene. "The intruder is him. Now murder him," the man in front roared. "It's time to go crazy." About 12 of them surrounded him to cut him off from the slaves as the rest of the group marched forward to the cells, with the leader of this guard group among them. He yelled as he started to rush forward to take down the charging cultists. To even out the numbers, he formed 4 shadow clones and started to cut them down left and right. "Somehow, one of you has to be accountable. Nobody ought to be aware of this island. In any case, he will soon pass away, and some of you slaves will perish as a warning to others. Let's start with you." When a shout was heard, he aimed his spear at Sho and began to charge forward. Rasengan. As the spiraling sphere sped out of his grasp like a bullet and struck the cultist's side, sending him crashing into a wall, Naruto yelled, and the cultist slumped to the ground, dead, with a huge hole in his torso leaking blood. "Are you guys going to fight for your freedom, or are you just going to stand there? Pansies are what these guys are." As he dodged a stab and kicked an enemy, sending them flying, he shouted back at them. Ursa's eyes enlarged at his words, recalling what Gerard had said to her, "We have to fight." Even Naruto and his clones gazed in wonder as she sliced the remaining cultists to shreds, gaining a determined gleam in her eye as she picked up one of the dropped weapons before charging forward and slicing through the reaming cultists in front of them. He wondered, where did that come from? She removed the other half by herself. She turned to face her fellow slaves and declared, "We must fight to gain our freedom. We cannot achieve this by obeying orders or fleeing. Fight for freedom." The other slaves were moved by her words and got to their feet, arming themselves with whatever they could find. "Come with me. I'll show you how to leave." As he ran up the stairs, Naruto yelled. Naruto and the slaves emerged from the cells to confront a horde of cultists determined to put an end to the uprising. "You believe that you can rebel? Write them all down," the leader of the cultist army shouted. The slaves fought valiantly for their freedom as the sides charged in a fierce battle. "You're not going to exploit us. Take them all out. Murder every slave," the cultists shouted. "The numbers are in our possession. We'll be free," the slaves roared, and Naruto led the charge, ruthlessly eliminating cultists left and right. The cultists noticed that Naruto had formed clones to help in the fight. "That child is a mage, not a slave. To defeat him, summon the magicians," a cultist shouted. "Dude, you seem to be the leader of these guys," Naruto yelled, turning to face Urza. "Stay with regular cultists. I'll take care of the magicians." "You can't accomplish this on your own. I am able to assist you," she answered. "I'm a fairy tale mage, so don't worry, I can handle it." Before leaping over the cultists in front of him and charging the approaching magicians, he smiled. She was astounded to think, he's like OG.San, a real fairy tale mage. "You idiots believe that no one will discover that you are taking illegal slaves. To bring back some dumb god? You are answerable to me? Odama Rasengan." The magicians regrouped and started firing blasts of magical energy from their staffs after he threw a Rasengan the size of his body at them. The attack plowed through their ranks, leaving a huge trench in its wake. Naruto retaliated by forming a group of clones, who then dodged the magicians' attacks and fired Rasengans in retaliation. One of the magicians saw that he had diverted their fire away from the rebels, taking the brunt of their attack alone, so he jumped behind his fellow warriors, using them as cover, and aimed directly at Urza. "Urza!" Old Man Rob yelled as he jumped in front of her to take the blast, braced himself for the hit, but was shocked when it didn't come, and opened his eyes to find a smoking Naruto crouching with his arms crossed in front of him. What a cheesy shot. The blast hadn't hurt him too much, but it took a lot of energy to block it, grunted a panting Naruto as he stumbled to his feet. Rob exclaimed, "This boy. Incredible," as he got a close-up look at the fairy tale tattoo on the boy's arm. "Now, boy, what will you do? You can't continue like this. Your death will be painless if you just give up now," one of the magicians exclaimed. The man was correct. Even though Naruto had enormous reserves of his own power, being cut off from the Kyuubi's power stopped him from having an endless supply. Nevertheless, he wasn't going down without a fight, and he still had willpower, which was more powerful than any of theirs. "I don't give a damn if you have a million more supporters, never will I give up, until these people are all free. I won't give up," he yelled as he dug for energy deeper than he had ever done. "No Jutsu Bushin by Taiju Cage," he announced that enough clones were being formed to outnumber the cultists 5-1. "What is this child?" Then one of them shouted. "Crushima, he's on his last legs." They began to charge, but were stopped in their tracks when a number of weapons shot up into the air above the clone army and pointed at them. Another shouted. "What is this?" they shouted. With her hands raised in the air, Urza caught everyone's attention. "Until everyone is free, neither I nor we will give up," she shouted as the weapons sprang at the magicians, who made an unsuccessful attempt to escape before being reduced to ashes by the swarm of weapons. "Fantastic Nei.San is also a magician," one of the children said. "We can't lose with two magic users this skilled," another said. With horror, the other cultists gazed at them. "Join me," Urza shouted as she raised her sword in the air. "Common, everyone, let us go crazy," the Narutos at the front of the charge roared. Naruto's clones and the slave revolt soon overtook the cultists, and as the rebels drove the cultists back, another group of Naruto clones awaited the deserters at the docks. Naruto had gathered a group of clones to guard the young children who were unable to fight and lead them to a ship when the battle began, and the children and the clones prepared the ship for the slaves' escape from the island, and now that the battle was over, everyone moved to the ship, thrilled that their freedom had finally been guaranteed. "Hey, where is Urza?" one of the older boys asked. Rob answered, "She went to find Gerard." A young girl said, "Nei.San should have been back by now. Go ahead and take off, you guys." Naruto turned and sprinted back towards the tower, saying, "I'll find Urza and catch up." "What's the hurry? We can wait," the older boy from earlier said. "I've been told to blow this place up. You guys wouldn't benefit from being present when that occurred." "Don't worry," he yelled over his shoulder, "I'll make sure she's safe." "Okay. Well, good luck," Rob shouted as Naruto hurried back inside. Urza released Gerard from his restraints when she got to his place, but then she noticed something was wrong. He began to ramble on about how true freedom was right here and he wasn't going anywhere, and then he used some weird magic to kill some cultists who had been beaten and were barely alive. She begged him to run away, saying that all their friends were waiting for him, but he started ranting about Zareth and finishing the tower. She assumed that he was acting strange because he was tortured, so she turned against him. Gerard raised his hand and unleashed a burst of magic, sending Urza flying down a tunnel before she rolled over onto her stomach, moaning. Go ahead and leave on your own if you wish to do so much. To finish this tower, though, the rest of your friends will remain here with me. I refuse to rule by coercion and terror like they do. I'll provide them with food, clothing, and the opportunity to work for the legendary mage Zareth, he declared. What are you discussing? Nobody will return to work here. Everyone is waiting for us. Open your eyes, Gerard. Gerard raised his hand and strangled her with his dark magic, silencing her. I no longer require you. I won't kill you as a reward for eliminating those annoyances. He said, you can go and find your temporary freedom. Gerard. She exclaimed startledly. I'll bet you won't mention this to anyone because everything would be destroyed if the government learned about this Tower of Paradise scheme. I would have to get rid of every employee and destroy any evidence of this tower. I'll start murdering all of your little pals if you ever come back here. Why don't I start with Sho, or better yet, that old man you love so much? As he tightened his hold on her throat, he laughed evilly. No, she exclaimed, her eyes welling with tears. Your valuable freedom, is that? Urza, continue living with your nakamas lives on your shoulders. Ha 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 ha, Gerard laughed, but he was taken by surprise when he was punched in the face, sending him flying. No asshole, not in this lifetime. When a voice said, she's already free, Gerard scurried to his feet and saw Naruto clutching a sobbing Urza. What on earth are you? Why have you come here? Gerard insisted. Me? I'm a mage from Fairy Tale. What am I doing? I'm going to kick your ass. Naruto glared directly at Gerard. I'm going to start a slave revolt, kill off cultists, and destroy this tower, but for some reason, seeing this girl cry really irritates me. How wonderful that the fucking government has already discovered, Gerard shouted. I'm pretty sure that if the government knew about all this, they'd have sent more than me, replied Naruto. Then how? Well, it's irrelevant. A mere mage. You made a huge error by attempting to match Zareth's power. He jumped sideways to avoid the magic blast he hurled at Naruto, who then knelt down to lean Urza against the cavern's wall as he cackled with delight. I understand what it's like to be despised and treated as though I weren't a complete human. The solution is not what you're doing. Do you realize that all you're doing is carrying on what they started? Naruto roared. Why are you concerned? You don't care about these people, Gerard cried out. Maybe to me, but I've witnessed her sacrifice herself to defend you and her friends. I've experienced what it's like to be abandoned by a friend. That's precisely what will happen to her if you do this, and I won't allow anyone else to go through that hell. He got to his feet and yelled. He felt a surge of magical energy suddenly, and when he looked down, he saw his fire tattoo glowing red. As he was raised into the air, he thought, I can feel it calling out to me. Wildfire armor. Jin Dao. Gerard stared at him in disbelief as he screamed as a flash of red light engulfed his body. The light vanished, leaving behind a thick cloud of smoke, which soon cleared to reveal Naruto wearing red and white armor and brandishing two katanas. What are you? Gerard stumbled. She won't have to bear the burden of her friends' lives, they will be free. The katana's blades soon started to glow with energy as Naruto lifted the weapon up behind his head and pressed the hilts together at the ends, declaring, I'm burning this place to the ground. Cease. What are you doing? You have no idea, Gerard cried out. I am fully aware of what I am doing. Now flare up. With the building starting to collapse behind him, Naruto sheathed his blades behind his back and turned back towards Urza, who was still conscious as he leaned down to pick her up. Screamed Naruto as he launched his attack, swinging the weapon forward. The blast hit Gerard before curving upwards, tearing through all the floors of the tower. He smiled and ran back out the way he came in, the tower collapsing behind him as she whispered, "Thank you," and passed out in his arms. He looked back at the remains before glancing down at himself, dressed in the armor carrying Urza bridal style, as he reached the end of the tunnel leading out and made a huge leap from the tunnel's edge all the way to the shore, causing the tower behind him to collapse into a single, massive pile of rubble. I can't wait to experience the others. Now how do I release it? There, Naruto closed his eyes and the armor suddenly glowed with a red light before disappearing from his body, leaving him in his slightly tattered clothes. Just what in the hell is this armor? As soon as it appeared on me, it was like I had been wearing it and wielding those blades my whole life. And the power of that one attack was incredible. He noticed that the tattoo for fire had changed to red, as if to signify its awakening, and that a new tattoo had formed beneath the others. He looked down at Urza and thought, where the hell did that come from? And what does it mean? I'll have to ask old man Makarov or Bahamut about this. Now what to do with you? Hey, young one. Well done. A voice called out. When he looked up, he saw the elderly man in the boat who had given him a ride out here with his dog. An elderly man? Hey, do you know how the others fared? He inquired. The old man replied, they're fine, took the cultist ship, and tailed it to the nearest town. That's great. Would you mind taking her to see her friends? The elderly man responded by shaking his head no. Rob, the elderly man you rescued earlier, was once Fairy Tale. Years ago, he gave up on magic, but he told that girl, Urza, to go to Fairy Tale. Being free and becoming a fairy tale mage like him is her dream. She's got real strength, don't worry, I got it covered, Naruto said, glancing down at her. Hey, he must have been in charge of the job showing up if he is Fairy Tale. That's why it disappeared when I arrived. That means there is no pay, huh? Tell old Makarov about everything, he instructed. He'll take care of getting you your money because this ought to have been a government-approved mission. Awesome. Then I'm going. Goodbye, old-timer, Naruto screamed, then leapt onto the water and began running at full speed. Kids these days are traveling in the most bizarre ways, don't they, Rinko? As he watched Naruto and Urza vanish into the distance, the elderly man uttered those words. Whoosh! Woof! In response, Rinko barked. Urza woke up with a start, and when her eyes opened, she saw that she was lying in a cozy bed in a room with her friends and the blonde mage who had saved her talking to an elderly man. Young lady, are you finally awake? Miss Urza, Naruto has told me many amazing things about you, Makarov remarked. Naruto, confused, she asked. Yes, we weren't given a formal introduction. This is Makarov, the guildmaster of Fairy Tale. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, Naruto said. She bowed to them as soon as she got out of bed, saying, I'm Urza Scarlet, thank you for saving me and my friends. Whoa, you don't have to be so official. Furthermore, even if I hadn't arrived, you probably would have defeated those guys because you're quite strong yourself. Urza's savior's praise made her flush. I have to run, return to my training, and get some clarification on this new tattoo. You will learn the ropes from this old man. See you around. Exiting the room, Naruto closed the door behind him and proceeded into the main hall, passing Mirajane and knocking into an empty barrel before closing the lid, laughing as he heard her screams and poundings from inside the barrel. He soon arrived at the main guild entrance, and after a few steps outside, he was stopped in his tracks by a shout. Wait, bring me along, together, we can grow stronger. She ran up to Gerard and begged, I don't want to lose another friend after Gerard. Hey, I'm not leaving you. I wouldn't want to drag you around with me while I finish my training because, according to old man Rob, your dream was to become a fairy tale mage. Don't worry, you're going to make a ton of friends here. You will see me frequently as well because I frequently drop in during my training breaks, and I will eventually return here permanently. Someone once gave this to me to show their hope and faith in me, he said, attempting to reassure her. After a brief moment of reflection, Naruto reached under his shirt, took out Tsunade's necklace, and put it around Urza's neck. You can now have faith in me as well. Before kissing her on the forehead, he declared. As Naruto left, waving back at her over his shoulder, Urza stood there in shock, her face flushed, and Mirajane hurried out the doors to join her. Yes, you jerk, you had better get away from me. Mirajane screamed at Naruto's vanishing form and then saw Urza stroking her new necklace and gazing off into the distance at him with a dreamy smile. What on earth are you staring at? Mirajane screamed, glaring at Urza. It is none of your concern, retorted Urza, instinctively leveling Mirajane with a glare of her own. Lighting bolts appeared to shoot out from each girl's eyes before they each turned away from one another with a HMPH. After 8 years. The Council of Magic, or, as Makarov put it, a group of both the senile arrogant old farts and incompetent young fools who have nothing better to do than sit around and bitch about how we don't follow their stupid rules. The aforementioned group was currently in session, sitting around a large round table in an open room within a large, beautiful white palace. The shadows of the open room obscured the identities of most of the figures, and a woman with black hair stood to the side of the table, rolling a glass ball back and forth on her arms. To the annoyance of those seated at the table, the black-haired woman dropped the ball onto the floor, shattering it into multiple pieces. She waved her arm, and the glass reformed itself into a ball and levitated on top of her head. A smirk adorned her face as she looked around the room. Urusha, stop behaving like a child. Drew led one of the silhouettes from the other side of the table. Don't you think this place is far too dull, Seedline? Sama? She asked, glancing at the person seated next to her. The blue-haired young man sitting next to her, wearing a white jacket and pants with thick black trim, smirked and kicked his feet up onto the table, demonstrating how bored he was. You're right, I'd almost rather watch paint dry, he said, causing the room to erupt in laughter. I almost wish someone would stroll through that door right now to stir things up. Just like last time. You stupid boy, shut your trap. I have no idea how runts like you ever became council members, exclaimed one of the male council members, an older man in a green cape, white suit, and ponytail, he said. Maybe because we have something you lack in your old age, perhaps. High magical power. Sieglein waved off the old man's remarks dismissively. The elderly idiot needs to retire. Everyone's attention was commanded by a large figure standing in the middle of the table, saying, "Silence you two idiots." His body was so completely obscured by the shadows that his appearance remained hidden. The council has more important problems to handle than your trivial arguments. How will we respond to fairy tale? The council gave him a nod and muttered, "Those idiots have been a pain in our side for far too long." You mean like Makarov, that idiot, sending him to our most recent meeting with the major guilds as a representative? The old man said, not to mention that crazy woman he brought with him, a total and utter disaster. All of the men felt a chill when he was mentioned, and the women's eyes were filled with love. Perhaps we should invite him to join the council, he and his companion would make a fine addition, said Arusha. Yes, that guy certainly keeps things interesting. Sieglein laughed a little and continued. Are you crazy? You wish to grant him such authority? I'm afraid of the day Makarov loses all sense and gives him control of the entire guild. This is going to be a nightmare, the old man yelled. The door of a small downtown bookstore in Harujoin Town's shopping district opened, revealing a blonde hooded figure who sneezed before turning the corner into an empty alley. A few seconds later, a silver-haired man with an eye patch appeared, looking around before snatching out an orange book and slipping into the crowds undetected. A few seconds later, the store sign in the window changed from closed to open, and the same orange book was put in the main window display. Suddenly, a manhole cover in the middle of the street opened, and a horde of men with advertisements for the orange book in their hands stormed the store, only to be turned away in desperation. Various people on their morning commutes hustled in and out of trains at the Harujoin station. A young boy with rose-colored hair slouched against the wall of an incoming train, struggling to hold down his last meal. His companion, a blue cat with a green bow tie, attempted to soothe his comrade's motion sickness to no avail. Pardon me, are you okay, boy? A worried conductor who had entered their section of the train car inquired. Yes, he will soon be all right. The man was reassured by the cat, who then turned back to his friend, who was now hanging his head out the window on the edge, losing the contents of his stomach. His mouth was starting to swell when the train abruptly stopped in the station, and he leaned his head back inside the train before scurrying out the open doors with the cat in tow. The boy knelt down and kissed the ground. Very solid land. You were missed. Never riding the train again. He repeatedly kissed the ground as he exclaimed. The cat turned back to the boy and said, Come on, let's go, as it looked around joyfully and said, Our info says that Salamander should be in this town. You're correct. The boy jumped up as if he wasn't nearly crippled by motion sickness minutes ago. Ignil, here we come. As he and his companion marched into town, he declared. The old shopkeeper tried to sell her some weak coloring magic she'd known for years, but the items in the shop so far proved to be a complete and utter waste of time, and Lucy now wondered why she had stopped in this town in the first place. Since there was only one magic store, she decided she might as well stop by to make the trip worthwhile. This is all you have? The only magic store in town? The blonde mage cried out in frustration. Please, less than 10% of the local population is magical. Only items for traveling mages are available from us. I'm confident you'll find something you like if you keep looking around, the elderly man begged. All right, the keys to the gates are what I'm really searching for. Good ones, she insisted. Yes, those are extremely rare items. The white doggy is here. As he led her to one of the display cases, the elderly man exclaimed. Well, I don't have that one, but it's not strong. What is the cost? She inquired. 20,000 jewels, replied the shopkeeper. I wonder how much it is. Pretending not to hear him, she asked. He repeated, I said 20,000 jewels. I really wonder how much it is. She whispered sensuously as she leaned forward to reveal her cleavage. Before she could go any further, a man with silver hair, gravity-defying hair, and a black cloak emerged from the back of the store. He was wearing a mask that covered his face up to his eyes, with an eye patch over his left eye. His face was stuck in an orange book as he made his way through the store without ever looking up. He took 2 sheathed blades out from under the counter and said, Thanks for polishing this up, old man. No issue, my young pal. Here, your company is always welcome, replied the shopkeeper. I'll see you later because I left the cash by the register, and quit criticizing the attractive girl. As he left the room, he said. Who was that? As the man walked away, she asked the storekeeper, who was looking at him. A young mage occasionally comes through here. She turned back to the old shopkeeper, who was on the other side of the store, counting through a big pile of cash with dollar signs in his eyes. Usually has some kind of armor or blade he wants polished up for one of his lady friends, she said. Ignoring the strangeness of the elderly man, she started, yeah, so how much for the... Oh, don't worry. He handled it for you. Goodbye. Until we meet again. Lucy pumped her fist in the air at the success of her sex appeal, even though it wasn't on the intended target. He replied, never looking up from counting the money in his hands. All right, that was really kind of him. She grabbed the key and quickly left the room after him, saying, perhaps I should repay the favor. Where did he go? Lucy walked through the heart of town, scanning the crowds, and noticed a group of women gathered up ahead. He couldn't have gotten too far. What's happening? As she approached the throng, she asked out loud. Salamander. Sama is here. A brunette with hearts in her eyes screamed as she rushed past Lucy. It's unbelievable that such a well-known sorcerer is here, the redhead who was running beside her screamed. A salamander? The fire controlling mage that isn't available for purchase. Oh, he appears to be well liked. The white-haired man with his hair pushed up to the right stood at the center of attention, and the girls and women all drooled over him with hearts in their eyes as he waved and blew kisses at them. Lucy moved towards the crowd to get a better look at the cause of the commotion, ignoring the pink-haired boy and his cat who had just been tossed from the center. The more Lucy watched him, the more she felt like she was being sucked into the craze. Why is my heart beating this way? I can't seem to control myself. She was unable to look away from him at this point. Women. Your compliment makes me feel good. Maybe I should give you a small display as a reward. The girls all jumped up and down, pleading to be chosen, but he waved them away, saying, no, I couldn't let you beautiful young ladies get hurt. Now I'll need a volunteer. To help, I'll need a big, strong guy. How about you? Lucy recognized the silver-haired man from the magic shop, but whatever was affecting her pushed these thoughts to the back of her mind. He pointed to a man reading a book behind the crowd, but the man didn't even look up to acknowledge him. He kept walking away when the man waved him off, saying, sorry, I'm just passing through rather busy. No, I refuse. Come on, you don't want to let these lovely women down, Salamander answered. I apologize, but I have to be somewhere. The silver-haired man tried to hurry out, but Salamander's attempt to grab his arm and pull him back toward himself with a tendril of fire failed because it caused a cloud of smoke to surround him. When the smoke cleared, it revealed a young, blonde man with whisker marks on his cheeks, dressed in a red sleeveless shirt, black loose fighting pants, and black sandals. His arms were covered in tattoos of various colors, and he wore a dark red scaly headband. Salamander's face was dripping with sweat because he hadn't planned to use a real mage for his display, especially one that looked angry. Naruto. Sama. It's Naruto. Sama, everyone, he's vying to be your ideal boyfriend among the top-ranked mage. One of the girls shouted as the audience's gaze shifted to the blonde. You phony salamander, damn you. As the crowd of girls surrounded him, Naruto yelled. A puff of smoke surrounded the group, causing the women to stop and begin coughing. When the smoke cleared, the girls all turned to face each other in confusion. Where did he go? They pondered out loud, and Salamander chose to take advantage of this. Ladies, don't worry, that was a close friend of mine. You can meet him later, but he's a little shy. You're all invited to the party we're hosting later tonight on our ship. I'll see you all later. I have some errands to run at the docks now, he said, launching himself toward the docks with his flame magic. Lucy scowled as he took off, realizing at last that the spell he was employing was an illegal charm spell. As she resumed her search, she thought, what a fake. I should really thank that guy for helping me again. Now all I have to do is find him. Naruto peered around a corner of a building and watched the guy fly away, saying, phew, that was close. He then turned to see a blue cat and a pink-haired man wearing a scaly scarf staring at the crowd. Oh, Natsu. Cheers. Why in the world are you here? Naruto. I've met the best mage. Give me a loan. A smiling Natsu held out his hand and exclaimed. Yes. Happy added, extending his hand as well. Why do you always seem to be broke when I see you? A few years ago, he would have laughed at him, but ever since he made some promises, not helping Natsu would be very problematic, complained Naruto as he took out some cash. Lasana holds onto the money so Natsu doesn't spend it on silly things, responded Happy. Hey. The majority of my money is mine to keep. Naruto shot back, I told you that she would give you more money if you bought her presents. He did, but he continued to give her pointless presents. As a result, He now has an allowance, Happy said, while Natsu sulked at being given one. What the hell are you guys doing out here anyway? Complained Naruto, recalling a time when he was on the verge of being reduced to an allowance. I bet her sister gave her that idea. We heard someone say something about Salamander. I thought they were talking about Ignil, replied Natsu. But it just turned out to be that fake Salamander guy, said Happy. A female voice behind them added, yeah, that guy was nothing but a fraud. Naruto was about to run away when the three of them turned to see Lucy smiling, and he relaxed when he recognized her. You're the girl from the bookstore, but I'm not. He was interrupted by her, yeah, thanks for the gift and thanks for the help back there in the crowd. He guessed, you saw me transform. Before Naruto struck him in the back of the head, Natsu said sage. Like, Naruto always uses his tricky magics to hide from girls. Hey. Don't give the impression that I'm afraid of women or anything, I only do that when I'm not carrying one of them, Naruto yelled. As they interacted, Lucy laughed and said, you guys are funny, how about I buy you and your friends lunch as thanks? Free food. Fantastic. Your new girlfriend, Naruto, is amazing. Natsu cried out. Yes. Added a Happy who was just as thrilled. A vein throbbed on Naruto's forehead as Lucy flushed. Oi, she and I recently met. You said that the last time, cheered Natsu as he ran up the street with Happy in tow, heading for the closest eatery. Oh, don't worry about him. Natsu makes a lot of pointless remarks. He grabbed her hand and dragged her with him to the restaurant, saying, come on, let's hurry before he eats all the food. Yeah, Lucy blushed and stammered as he dragged her along. Lucy looked on in amazement as the three of them essentially swallowed the food in front of them, and she was relieved that Naruto insisted on paying for the meal because these guys would spend all of her hard-earned money. Natsu kept reaching out and stuffing his face with everything he saw, while Naruto gobbled up bowl after bowl of ramen. She saw that although Natsu appeared to be haphazard in his grabbing, he never touched a single bowl of ramen. Naruto then let out a loud belch. Oh, he took a sip of his drink and patted his stomach, saying, it's not the best ramen I've ever had, but it's definitely not the worst. You mean Naruto, Natsu, and Happy? Lucy inquired in an attempt to start a discussion. Happy swallowed a fish in a single bite and replied, Do you two know one another? She asked. Naruto said, yeah, we go way back. Happy added, people often confuse them for being brothers. Naruto and Natsu both snorted at how absurd that was. Yes, I did notice that. Are you two partners or something? She asked. Not at all. I don't work with fools. I only work with cute girls, Naruto exclaimed as he pounded his fist against the table. Gwar bwuleegwaaagaa, Natsu said, looking up from his meal and shaking the bread roll in his hand at Naruto. Yes, but that doesn't count because the girls were with us at the time, Naruto answered. Lucy blushed as the idea of working with Naruto suddenly crossed her mind, but she shook her head angrily to get the idea out of her head. Naruto got up abruptly and said, I have to meet someone. Lucy, nice to meet you. Happy also makes sure Natsu stays out of trouble. Yes, sir. Happy saluted his retreating form in response. GWLULUUBWASTA. With his face still full of food, Natsu shook his fist at the escaping Naruto. But wait, he mentioned that you had previously collaborated. Does that imply that you are also a mage? Lucy asked. Happy answered, we're all members of the same guild. Of course they would be in a guild. What does that say about me? Lucy sighed glumly. I should have figured. All right, enjoy the meal and thanks for the company. Waving back to them over her shoulder, Lucy got up and left. As the sun sank, Lucy was reading Weekly Sorcerer magazine on a park bench. Is Fairy Tail up to no good again? In addition to demolishing the Devon Thief family, they also demolished a church and 7 houses owned by the town's residents. Sunk a number of the cargo ships in the Southport's fleet while defending them against the Buckhead pirates? Haha. 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 It's excessive. She rolled around along the park bench in laughter. The Fairy Tail drawing cards? Naruto and Mirajane are here? The centerfold contained a picture of Mirajane posing in a bikini with Naruto embracing her in a speedo. Wow. I wonder if I could join Fairy Tail. They're simply the best, Lucy said, swooning over the photo. A voice said, I see, you want to join Fairy Tail, and Lucy jumped back in surprise, turning to look behind her. A salamander. I stumbled out, she said. What luck, after searching everywhere, I've finally located you. He exclaimed, I truly wanted to invite a lovely woman like you aboard our ship. Disgusted, she rose from the bench and gazed down at him. HMPH, your feeble charm is no longer effective on me. Your weakness is that it will no longer work once someone discovers the charm. I was aware of it, you're a gifted young mage as well. You have to attend the party, he declared. She replied, no way I'm going to such a dirty guy's party. Me? Unclean? He asked. With a pouty expression on her face, Lucy said, I'm talking about that charm, you must be desperate for popularity. Salamander attempted to downplay it by saying, that's only for show, so I can be a celebrity during the party. You're a loser and an idiot, Lucy said, shaking her head and leaving. You will never be a well-liked sorcerer. Hold on, I take it you wanted to join Fairy Tail? Lucy stopped dead in her tracks and turned back to him as he begged. You know Salamander from Fairy Tail? Yes, I have. You're a Fairy Tail mage, right? She insisted. Yes. I can discuss joining with the master on your behalf if you'd like, he said. Acting like a fangirl, Lucy abruptly leaned against him and said, won't it be a great party? You're simple to comprehend, aren't you? He scratched his head and said. Is it possible for me to join Fairy Tail? Lucy's large, beseeching eyes asked. Certainly, don't tell anyone about the charm, please, he said. All right. Lucy exultantly cheered. I'll see you tonight at the party, he said, then turned to leave. Sir, Roger. She gave him a salute. All right. I'm able to join Fairy Tail. I just have to be friendly with that moron until I join, Lucy exclaimed, jumping and shouting with excitement before bursting into laughter. On the opposite side of town, Naruto sat on a park bench outside a hair salon, tapping his foot impatiently as he waited for someone to emerge. Naruto moaned, finally. A young woman with green eyes and crimson hair in a short, spiky ponytail stepped out the door, wearing a black miniskirt over dark blue tight bicycle shorts that exposed her long legs and shapely back, a tight red and white short sleeved top that emphasized her large breasts. She stretched her arms high in the air and yawned before turning to face Naruto, giving him a look that brought back memories of their first real encounter. Entering the time travel machine. After returning from his mission at Paradise Tower, Naruto rushed up to his trainer and demanded to know the most recent use of his magical abilities. Hey, Gramps, Naruto shouted, attracting the Dragon King's attention. Brat. Bahamut moaned as he slapped his face with a claw. I should have never told you my real age. How many times must I repeat this to you? Be respectful. I could crush you like a bug because I am the Dragon King? The ancient winged reptile demanded. All right, it's King Gramps. He held out his left arm, showing the fox head tattoo that had developed underneath the others, and said, look at this, I woke up the fire armor, but then disappeared. What does it mean? The blonde inquired. The first armor has finally awakened, which is good news. Bahamut whispered, as for the new tattoo, it appears the fox has finally gotten in touch with you, reforging the connection between your powers. Naruto was perplexed and asked, what do you mean? I believed you to have stated that we were separated. You were, but since then, your magic has evolved. The fox must not have been able to connect with your magic prior to the armor being awakened. Its magic must be more compatible with the dragon's equipped magic. To find out what is really happening, you will need to meet with it, Bahamut said. Dude, I'd really rather not go back to that sewer, nor deal with that bastard of a fox again, complained Naruto, assuming a meditative pose. Just so you know, you might not be dealing with the same bastard fox as before. The fox was a creation of only yang energy before you came here. When you transformed that into magical energy, your arrival in this realm made up for it. Here, you might be receiving a fresh start or even the fox's original spirit before it was sealed, Bahamut suggested. Excellent. Naruto muttered, so it's either the same evil bastard, a stupid fool, or a cocky punk. Bahamut muttered to himself, you of all people complaining about arrogant punks. When the young blonde's eyes opened, he was shocked to see that he was drowning. He gasped, covered his mouth, and swam upwards for air, reaching his knees on top of the water after breaking through the surface. The young blonde closed his eyes and searched within himself, but soon found himself drawn in by the familiar sensation of being sucked into his mindscape. What gives? Between coughs and splutters, he gasped, I almost drowned in the sewer of my own mindscape. About a half-mile from the shore, he looks up to finally realize that he is kneeling on top of a sea of water rather than in a sewer. Since he could only see water behind him, he started to head for land. From where did this originate? He scratched his head as he made his way to the shore. As he got closer, he saw a girl, who appeared to be around his age, going through different katas on the water's edge. She had long crimson hair and was dressed in a tight, light blue fighting suit. Naruto briefly lost all sense of his location as he drooled over the girl, but he quickly shook his head to get rid of the thoughts. Who are you? Looks like arrow. Sennin succeeded in corrupting me after all. He demanded. She hesitated in her movements, then turned to give him a look that eerily reminded him of that creepy examiner lady, Anko, from a few years ago, but this time it wasn't frightening the shit out of him. Instead, it created a completely different feeling that came from his pants. What are your thoughts? I mean, it's not bad for a bastard fox. She smirked at him as she said that. With a stunned expression, Naruto said, but you. Why can't someone that's strong be female? She glared at him. No, it's just that, he said, waving his hands in front of his face in a conciliatory manner. What? She insisted. I've never seen a more attractive girl than you. I thought there would be a huge red fox. You're supposed to complain about dumb apes that you could crush with your paw while I demand that you lend me your power as rent. This is crazy, he swore. For you, I could change into one, but that would only be a transformation, she remarked. I still can't use all of my power. At this, he arched an eyebrow and asked, why? Even though the seal is no longer in use, its main function has not changed. It was intended for you to have my power or for no one, including myself, to have it, she said. Well, your power just remained. What happened to it? He inquired. I was able to transform my power into armor for you to equip since you awoke your dragon equip magic. There is only one catch, that's where the tattoo originated, she said. What is that? He inquired, trying to ascertain the direction of this. I have to become the armor, and in order for that to be possible, I must be free, she said, placing her cards on the table. Come on now, I'm no fool, Naruto said, shaking his head. I let you go, but how can I be sure you won't leave me hanging? I don't really want to trust you because of our past. I'm also aware that you still hold a lot of power today. I wasn't attempting to conceal that information from you. In actuality, I owe you. You are aware that Madara and his Sharingan had me under their control, which is why I was sealed in the first place. I felt like I was asleep for all those years inside the seal because I was split in half, and after the sealing, I wasn't really me. Although I wasn't actually in charge, I can recall what transpired with you and our interactions inside the seal. Whatever changed when we got there made me whole again. I am aware that rather than enclosing half of me in you, your father might have killed me outright if you had not been born on that day. The truth about the Biju is that, until hungry humans tried to use us as weapons, we tended to mind our own business and were not creatures of mass destruction. You have already lifted that curse from me, and if you will allow it, I would like to take full advantage of this chance. Maybe we could be partners instead of working against each other like you have been used to in the past. Are you partners? Naruto asked, tapping his chin, and she watched him eagerly, waiting for his answer, which he gave after a few minutes. All right, I'm in. She was shocked by his speedy resolution, asking, that's it? Did you anticipate a month-long discussion or something? This isn't that difficult. If you're being totally honest, it will be fantastic. If not, I'll have King Gramps murder you. Looks like I have rubbed off on you. She smiled slyly in response. How do we go about this, anyway? He inquired. Just stand there, and I'll take care of it. I should inform you that the rest of your armor will be forcibly awakened as a result of my actions, Kyuubi said. You're not so horrible after all, I would have agreed regardless of the repercussions if you had told me that in place of your brief speech. How will you accomplish this, then? Like this? Naruto was momentarily stunned before everything disappeared in a white flash of light as she sprang forward and smashed her lips into his. Entering the machine of the future. Where have you spent the entire day? She questioned him. The ninja of Konoha would likely run back to his village in terror and yell, God help us all. If you told him that the Kyuubi no Kitsune could force Naruto Uzumaki to do anything she wanted. Sure Q-chan, you drag us here on some wild goose chase, ditch me for this shop and now you're concerned for where I've been. Naruto pouted, and she approached him, sat down next to him, pulling his head into her lap, massaging the whisker marks on his cheeks. The fairy tale mage would likely sigh and smile perversely if you told him the same thing. If I got to hit that, I would do whatever she wanted to, he would say. It's not fair, damn it. Like her, he has 3 more. I must have a beer. She whispered to him, you weren't complaining last night, when I convinced you to come. Naruto blushed and laughed when he recalled their activities from the previous evening. Almost too easy, she thought, smiling. I needed to pick up something, so I had to stop by the magical shop. She raised an eyebrow at the mention of Lucy, and he responded, lost in her ministrations. Then I ran into Natsu, Happy, and Lucy and we had lunch. And who exactly is Lucy? She asked. Without listening to his responses, he answered, the really sexy blonde girl I met at the magic shop. Really? she remarked, grinning down at him. He tries to defend himself after realizing what he just said. Don't look at me like that. I nearly got surrounded by a swarm of fangirls because you just spent the day at that spa and hair salon, he said. A5. Girlfriend man who is terrified of big gatherings of women. Kyubi gave him a laugh. Look, it's just 4. In addition, you are the ones who decided to become my girlfriends or else I would die after getting together after jumping me on different occasions, he shot back. We knew you wouldn't choose to be noble and not break anyone's heart, she sighed. Therefore, we either share you or nobody does. In addition, how do Lucy, Urza, Kana, Mirajane, and I add up to 4? Hey, she and I recently met, he stood up and shouted. You mentioned Kana in that way. Besides, we could use a blonde to make things more interesting, she said in a sing-song voice. She jumped on his back, wrapped her legs around him, and whispered into his ear, after we're done, I have 2 words for you. Ramen job. A moment later, a yellow and red blur was seen speeding across town. Come on, I got information that the slave ship is supposed to be somewhere by the docks, she said. After completing their large meal, Natsu and Happy strolled through town as nightfall finally arrived. Oh, it was a tasty meal. Natsu patted his stomach and said, the food always tastes better when Naruto pays for it. The sun had set and the town was lit by various lights when Happy saw a ship floating in the center of the harbor. Happy agreed. The two of them stood from the high point in town, looking down upon the docks and the sea. Happy pointed to the ship and said, I wonder if that's the ship Salamander is having his party on. Natsu leaned shakily on the ground and said, Ooh, I don't feel so good. They noticed a conversation between 2 girls standing a short distance away from them, and Happy said, Don't get motion sickness imagining it. Look. Salamander's ship is that. Oh no, I was hoping to attend the party, said the girl with the dark hair. A salamander? Who is that? The blonde inquired. You're not sure? He is a well-known mage who is in town right now. He's from the renowned guild Fairy Tail, I've heard, the brunette answered. Fairy Tail. Natsu said, turning to face the ship. The pink-haired mage gazed at the ship thoughtfully. This place is a total chick fest, maybe I should just get out of here. No, this may be my only chance to join Fairy Tail. Where's that salamander? It's time to do some good schmoozing, Lucy said, as she walked up and down the top deck of the party ship in her chic black dress and high heels, a little put off by the fact that there was not a single man in sight. She moved down to the main cabin and took a seat in the hopes that Salamander would arrive soon. A few seconds later, the door opened, and he entered, strode into the room, oozing smugness. She barely stopped herself from leaving. Come on, Lucy. You just need to be kind to this idiot for a little while longer. This guy is almost too much. He handed her one of the glasses of wine he had poured out, asking, Is it luck? What a lovely name for a lovely girl. You have other girls, don't you? She answered nonchalantly. That's absurd. I would much rather have a drink with you. Let's have a toast. Just open your mouth and pearls of wine will come in, he said, snapping his finger to release tiny droplets of wine from her glass into the air. You are so annoying. Calm down. Just a little more patience. Then I kick him. That's it, she said, clenching her fists and barely maintaining her composure. With a stern glare, she leveled Salamander and swatted the wine droplets away, asking, What are you planning? A sedative? I'm not going to fall for that ruse. But I'll never go so far as to be with you, even though I want to join Fairy Tail. A sinister expression appeared on his face, and his expression abruptly changed. He. How did you figure it out? Anyway, you're such a bad girl. If you had just drank the wine, it could have gone much more smoothly. He snapped his fingers, and a few thugs came out of hiding and seized Lucy. What on earth is happening here? Lucy struggled to free herself and demanded. Welcome to our slave ship, he said, taking her by the chin and raising her face to his. I'll have to ask you to remain silent until we reach Bosco, miss. Bosco? What are you saying? Fairy Tail, what about it? She cried out to him. I told you this is a slave ship, he said, dropping her face and stepping away from her. You are merely merchandise. Give up, you are now ours. Salamander came up with such a brilliant idea. Girls are turned into merchandise after being enticed to our ship with the charm. One of the ugly thugs said, It looks like this one isn't falling for it, so we'll have to resort to other methods, and then he laughed. Lucy thought angrily, damn it. This can't be. How can they do this? Abusing magic this way. Is this really Fairy Tail? Abruptly, Salamander reached up her thigh and took out the keys concealed beneath her dress. A mage of stellar spirit. Now to prepare for your branding. Salamander said, tossing the keys over his shoulder to the opposite side of the room. Perhaps we can fetch a fair price for these later. What a great discovery, Salamander. As Salamander heated his branding iron, one of the thugs remarked, we haven't had such a pretty one in a long time. The group turned around and saw two purple-haired twin girls wearing light blue kimonos. They identified themselves as Naruto and Kyuubi in a puff of smoke, and Kyuubi added, with faces like that it's obvious why you have to kidnap girls. Looking at your face I can see why. You, Salamander proclaimed, accusing Naruto with a finger. Me? Naruto pointed to himself as he asked. You, indeed? You crashed my party today after nearly ruining me earlier. You dare? Salamander roared. Who the devil is this individual? The only thing I remember happening earlier today was almost getting caught by a mob of fangirls, asked Naruto, scratching his head as a chill went through his body. One of the thugs snorted, this guy is a wuss, women frighten him. Not women, you moron. Fangirls are rabid howler monkeys with no sense of logic, he said, his eyes going glassy before a sudden, wild, and suspicious expression appeared on his face. Women are lovely creatures that can do wonderful things. They inflict pain regardless of whether you are the target or an innocent bystander. Just terrible, terrible pain. Take caution. Rubbing his whiskers, Kyuubi interrupted him in the middle of his tirade, saying, don't mind him, he was traumatized by an ugly rabid fangirl during his childhood. She truly did resemble a pink howler monkey. The thugs and even Salamander hung their heads in sympathy for him for some reason. Naruto. Lucy exclaimed with delight, drawing everyone's focus back to the current circumstance. Hi Lucy. Greeted Naruto as though the men holding her weren't going to brand and abuse her. Idiot. Kyuubi muttered, swiping her hand out and holding up Lucy in an instant, glancing over the well-dressed blonde girl with a critical gaze. Well, I agree, she's a keeper. Kyuubi rubbed her cheek against her as she cheered. What was approved for? Asked Lucy, who was now perplexed. That is not the time to do that now, Naruto yelled. Hey, this time, you didn't turn her away, Kyuubi gloated. Oh no. Naruto moaned as he grabbed and tugged at his hair. You shouldn't have any trouble with these clowns, boss, one of the thugs exclaimed. As Happy floated down through the hole, Naruto, Lucy, and Kyuubi watched in amusement as the groaning form of Natsu scrambled to his feet, looming over Salamander, after something suddenly crashed through the ceiling and landed directly on top of him. Natsu groaned and staggered around like a drunk, saying, hey, I don't feel so good. He was momentarily relieved from his nausea by seeing Salamander sprawled out on the floor. Hey, you're the fake Ignil. You claim to be from Fairy Tail, I heard. But I've never seen you around before, Natsu said, appearing to steady himself before continuing. With his cheeks protruding and his gut held in Salamander's grasp, Natsu abruptly doubled over in front of him as he flashed his fairy tale tattoo. Naruto muttered, oh, this is not good folks. If he wasn't such a dickhead, I'd almost feel sorry for him. Lucy continued. Salamander fainted as the vomit sprayed onto his body, and all he could do was stare up in horror as Natsu threw up half of his meal on top of him. Natsu wiped his face and said, oh, I feel a lot better now. Naruto, Kyuubi, and Lucy could hardly contain their laughter as the thugs gaped at him in shock. He's a slayer of vomit dragons. Natsu scowled at him and was about to respond when the boat rocked and he doubled over in agony once more. Naruto declared this as the three of them burst out laughing. Happy, get out of here, Natsu. Naruto gave the order, go back to the docks. Yes, sir. Before he flew out of the hole they had just entered, Happy saluted him as he swooped down to pick up his motion sick friend. All the girls have been eliminated by the clones. All of them have returned to town safely. What should I clean up with? Kyuubi was asked by Naruto. You're on a boat at sea, use torrent, Kyuubi shrugged. Torrent? Lucy asked. Oh, you haven't yet witnessed his magic. It's a true treat, so get ready. Kyuubi exclaimed, her eyes gleaming with excitement. As Naruto raised his arms in front of himself, using his magical power, the air around him abruptly became lighter. Armor of the torrent. Dao Shin. Everyone squinted as a blue light briefly engulfed him. When it subsided, Naruto, wearing blue armor and brandishing a trident spear, nodded to Kyuubi before leaping through the hole Happy had just flown out of, and Kyuubi followed suit, bringing Lucy along. When Lucy and Kyuubi stepped outside the ship, they saw Naruto standing on the crest of a huge wave that was still there and looming behind the ship. Lucy clung to the ship while Kyuubi sped across the water to avoid danger. Naruto raised his trident into the air, and a huge water dragon twice the size of the ship formed behind him. Kyuubi said, "Watch now, this is a real fairy tale mage in action." Lucy and she watched from a safe distance, and Naruto's eyes grew piercing as Salamander's vomit covered figure staggered up to the ship's edge. "Everything is ruined by you. For this, I'll get you. You know what your biggest crime was? Slavery, using illegal magic, pretending to be a fairy tale mage, and generally being a jerk. I almost got caught by fangirls. That vomit must smell awful. How about taking a nice bath to get rid of it all?" Naruto launched his attack by swinging the trident forward. "No!" Salamander shouted as he tried to get off the ship, but it was too late. Water Dragon Missile. Water Release. As the attack finally subsided, Kyuubi, Lucy, and an armored Naruto moved towards the docks to see the results. The damage did not let them down. The ship was reduced to splinters and stray planks of wood scattered throughout the port. The fake Salamander lay spread out in the center of it all, his head covered by the remnants of a toilet bowl, and the thugs were washed up on top of the roofs of various nearby buildings. The dragon slammed forward, slamming into the ship. The water blast carried the ship across the water before smashing into the docks. "A little too much?" Lucy stepped away from Kyuubi and stammered in shock. "It got the job done," snorted Naruto, "that's all that matters." "You demolished half of the harbor," she shouted in shock. A number of nearby buildings were destroyed, and some seemed to have been inundated. "The council has a lot of money, so they can pay for repairs," Naruto said, dismissing her worries. "In any case, this dock needed to be renovated." Lucy reached for her keys after shaking her head, only to realize they were gone. "Oh no, my gate keys are missing. They were taken back on the ship by that creep." A jingling sound came from behind her, and she turned to see Kyuubi holding up her key ring as she yelled in desperation. "No worries, I got it covered," the redhead grinned. "I'm grateful, I'm grateful, I'm grateful," Lucy repeated repeatedly as she gave Kyuubi a bear hug. Natsu and Happy approached the trio, with the latter in disbelief at the extent of Naruto's attack's damage. The talking cat said, "That was some attack, I've never seen him use that one before." The Fire Dragon Slayer arrogantly declared, "This isn't so impressive, my Fire Dragon missile attack is much more powerful." Naruto, who was no longer wearing his armor, deadpanned, "You just stole the idea for that attack from mine, didn't you?" Happy agreed and said, All he did was switch it from water to fire. My own is still superior." Natsu shook his fist at them and yelled. "What on earth is happening here?" A voice called out, and the group turned to see the military rushing toward them through the wrecked port. "Oh, screw it. The score is 5.0. We must bail." Lucy looked back in disbelief as Naruto yelled. She felt herself lifted up and carried bridal style, and when she looked up, she saw another Naruto with Kyuubi riding on his back, trailing behind Natsu and Happy. Kyuubi gave her a wink. "Hi, Naruto. Your girlfriend is interested in joining Fairy Tail," Kyuubi said. "Hey, we recently met," Lucy blushed as she exclaimed. "Do you want to be a part of Fairy Tail? So you're stuck with us, I suppose? Guys, go for it." As he shifted Lucy over his shoulder into a fireman carry and charged forward at blazing speeds, the Naruto carrying her exclaimed. "Hey," she cried out. "Yes," Happy and Natsu, trying to keep up, exclaimed. "Wow, it's enormous. It was almost overwhelming to be at the door of my dream guild after dreaming of joining one for so long." The large complex had the face of an ancient Arabian palace, and Lucy couldn't believe she would soon be living so close to and working in such a magnificent place, she said, wearing expressions of wonder and amazement as she looked upon the guild from the entrance. As he opened the door, Naruto muttered, "Surprisingly, it's still standing." Kyuubi heard his sarcastic comment and gave him a playful shoulder slap. "Thanks to us." "No," she laughed. "Greetings from Fairy Tail." Happy's greeting brought Lucy back to reality as he trailed behind Natsu, who strode inside like he owned the place, leaving Lucy standing at the entrance still admiring the scene. "Hold on for me," Lucy, frantically trying to keep up, begged. As Lucy caught up, Naruto said, "As soon as we find the old geezer, we'll get you signed up officially." Lucy nodded absently as she looked around the establishment, which was as busy as ever with the waitresses rushing around to serve their patrons, different groups of people sitting around eating, drinking, and chatting, and other mages standing close to the job postings, searching for their next task to complete. "Come on over here, Mira. Chan, have 3 beers," a sitting mage wearing an odd hat yelled. "Coming up right now." As she dropped off drinks at another table, the gorgeous goddess with silver hair responded from across the room. A middle-aged man wearing a flowery shirt called out to her as she crossed the room to serve him. "Mira. Chan," he screamed. "Yes, exactly what is that?" Awaiting his order, she replied. The man held his hands over his chest and took a long drag from the cigarette before taking it out and blowing out 3 hearts of smoke in her direction. Next time, let's go on a date, batting his eyes at her, he declared. Always when he's not around, she said with a sigh and a mild shake of her head. You're in for it now, dude. He felt a tremendous assault of murderous intent directed at himself and feared that her boyfriend had caught him in the act when one of his friends called out, pointing behind him. Naruto. My friend, I was just kidding, he stammered as he turned to confront his irate wife, who was far worse than Naruto. Oh, my dear, I was just kidding, please, for me, you are the only one, you know, he begged the elderly, slender woman. You were a fool. Everyone at the table started laughing as she screamed and slapped him, sending him flying across the room and into a wall. She then waved her finger at him in a reprimanding motion before disappearing in a puff of smoke, revealing Naruto smiling and making the peace sign. Timeless. One of them shouted. Naruto put an arm around Mirajane and complained, teach that bastard to hit on my woman. Mirajane shrugged it off and then struck him in the back of the head with the empty tray in her hand. You fool. Don't mistreat my clients, Mirajane shouted. The blonde rubbed his head and moaned, yeah, nice to see you too. Why can't you be as nice as when you're working here, all the time? What in the world does that mean? She yelled at him, and Natsu's sudden approach, followed by the rest of the returning group, ended their possible altercation. We're back home. Natsu shouted. Home, Happy chimed, raising his paw in a welcoming gesture. Where is Mira now? Natsu inquired. Happy, Hugh, and Natsu welcome you home. Mirajane answered. Lisana's shift begins a few minutes after mine does. Well, I have time, he responded, turning to look at the different members strewn about, and the person he was seeking soon identified himself. Hi, Natsu, Naruto, once again, you guys went overboard. I read about the Harujoin incident in the newspaper. Natsu kicked the buck. Toothed Mage in the face, cutting him off. You bastard. You gave me false information about Salamander, the Fire Dragon Slayer roared. As the daily altercation began to take shape, Mirajane groaned, great with these two back, the store is going to be torn apart, again. Naruto muttered to himself, before you began working in here, you were just as involved in tearing this place up. Where is the master, Mira? Kyubi inquired. He mentioned something about business while he was out and about. Why? She answered. Lucy is a new member of our team, Kyubi replied, introducing the blonde. Mirajane glanced over at Kyubi, who winked at her, making her frown and focus on her boyfriend. You simply needed to go get another one, didn't you? She looked sharply and demanded. What else? The blonde immediately acted to defuse the situation after the always naive Naruto asked, and she responded with a doubtful look at Lucy. He put an arm around her from behind and kissed the crook of her neck, making her groan. You know I don't make those kind of decisions anymore, he said. And I must say giving up that power was well worth it. Does the Eastern Chantel you're wearing give you a wonderful scent? A voice behind him deadpanned. You wouldn't figure a guy who's afraid of women could pull moves like that. Naruto turned to confront the guild's biggest bastard, in his opinion. Get out of Loki. Teme, fangirls are the most disgusting people on the planet, and I only fear the garbage you typically enjoy. Naruto responded. Unlike some standard-less people I know, it takes the charm of a real woman to capture me. It's unbelievable. The two men were tied for the title of best mage to date, within the same guild. That I will soon be joining, Lucy drooled. They both responded simultaneously. I demanded they print a retraction. In no way do I want to be associated with a loser like him. When Loki thrust the girls at his sides in front of him towards Naruto, the two of them growled at one another. You'll be shown for the coward you are by these two, said Loki. Go, Loki. Sama. They applauded, and Naruto immediately left his place and reappeared behind Lucy. You idiot, you believe that I arrived here unprepared, sexy Stellar Spirit Mage, see your greatest undoing. At the words, Stellar Spirit Mage Loki swiftly grabbed his girls and hurried away, declared Naruto, pushing Lucy forward. That won't be enough for you, he called over his shoulder, ladies, let's go. Your sex appeal needs to be improved. That ought to have worked, Naruto said, rubbing his chin. What on earth were you attempting to accomplish? Lucy demanded angrily. So you have some spirit in you after all, replied Mirajane. Naruto has the insane idea that Loki is afraid of Stellar Spirit Mages because he is a Stellar Spirit. I would get rid of a Stellar Spirit Mage for good if he was attractive enough. We'll try again after Kyubi helps her with her sex appeal. Naruto yelled, but the redhead slapped him in the back of the head. Stop being so stupid. The spirit of Loki is not stellar, Kyubi exclaimed. Their thoughts were abruptly cut short by a shout. Are the Dragon Bros returning? Natsu. Where are you, punk? We're resolving our previous argument. A dark-haired man roared as he rushed toward them from behind Lucy. How long have you been moving around that way, Gray? A brunette sitting at the bar said as he walked by. Ashish. He was only wearing boxers when he looked down, and he quickly ignored his attire in favor of his fight, charging at Natsu, who dismissed him right away. The adolescent with the pink hair pushed him away, saying, "Come back after you dressed." Before she picked up a barrel of alcohol and drank from it, the girl at the bar said, "Another one of those undignified guys I can't stand." Lucy looked at her incredulously as she chugged down the entire thing before belching, and Naruto saddled up next to her with his own barrel. "That's why you have me, sweetie. Check out what I got from the port to the south," the blonde, flaunting the rare ale he had taken, exclaimed. She smashed her lips into his, initiating a passionate kiss, and abruptly ended it after getting her hands on Naruto's barrel while he was preoccupied. "Someone deserves a reward," she said. She raised it to take a sip and whispered, "Ah, come to mama." "Sometimes I wonder if she loves me as much as booze," Naruto sighed. "Most days, it's a coin flip," Mira-Jane chuckled. Pointing his thumb at the arguing Gray, Naruto shot back, "I swear your sister is some kind of saint to put up with him. It shouldn't be considering the alternatives." "Well, I suppose that makes us goddesses." Kyuubi's response made Mira chuckle. "Hey!" Naruto yelled. "What nonsense! You men have no pride." A deep voice beckoned to Gray and Natsu. Lucy turned to see Elfman's massive frame scowling down at the argument that erupted. "Like young children, they yap in the middle of the day. Men should use their fists to fight," Elfman said. At the ongoing stupidity, Lucy shook her head and said, "It comes down to fighting after all." "You weren't asked." As they threw him across the room, Gray and Natsu roared. "Mira, your shift is over," Naruto exclaimed as he looked up at a clock and leapt to his feet. Lucy stared at them in shock as the once arguing pair entered a passionate makeout session, unaware of the outside world, and Naruto grabbed her by the shoulders and began kissing her, cutting off the beginning of her tirade, finally through with dealing with so many annoying bastards. Kyuubi said casually, "Sheesh, you think they could wait till they got back home, and let me join?" At this statement, Lucy's face went blank. "Is anyone here normal?" she groaned. "All of this shouldn't surprise you too much." Before a flying chair leg slammed into her head, Kyuubi said, "It pretty much counts as a typical day around here." "Isn't someone supposed to stop them?" Lucy asked, staring at the smiling kitsune as though she were crazy. "Not at all. This is a lot more enjoyable," Kyuubi said. Naruto abruptly stopped tending to Mira-Jane and looked out into the middle of the room, where the fight was still going on. "I think I've figured out why Gray is always picking fights with Natsu," said Naruto. "Because they are mages of fire and ice," miffed at his stopping, an agitated Mira-Jane shot back. He pointed to Natsu, who was now standing laughing and holding up Gray's boxers as the nude teenager flew across the room and crashed next to Lucy. No, Natsu was the first person to do that to him. As he clambered to his feet, everyone got a good look at a little Gray. Kyuubi laughed, "Wow, no wonder he's mad. Avoid going this way." Lucy covered her eyes and exclaimed. "Hey, are you able to give me some underwear?" Lucy was asked by Gray. "Not at all," screamed a furious Lucy. "Men ought to use their fists to fight." Elfman roared from the center of the fight, and Natsu's punch sent him flying once more. "Avoid getting in our way," Natsu bellowed, and as the fight grew more intense, a chair flew out of the middle and struck Kana's barrel, spilling its contents. "That's it. Nobody ever ruins my drink, especially when Naruto is involved." As she got ready to join the battle, Kana screamed, leaping to her feet and raising one of her cards above her head. "I'm done." As he charged his ice magic, Gray exclaimed. "Nuoh!" Elfman roared as he began to change. As his ring throbbed with strength, Loki joined the battle, murmuring, "What a troublesome bunch." "Come get me," Natsu declared, his arms engulfed in flames. "Magic." Lucy let out a startled cry as the altercation reached a new height. As Kyuubi began to massage her left breast, she groaned, "This is getting a little intense." "It is, indeed." "What are you doing?" Lucy exclaimed, her eyes practically exploding from her skull. "Look at them." Kyuubi answered. Lucy's brain seemed to overload between the massive brawl and sex that was about to break out in front of her, but fortunately for her, someone swiftly restored order. Naruto and Mira were now on top of a table, letting out moans and groans. Naruto's shirt was gone, and his hands were inside Mirajane's dress as the make-out session went a step further. A sharp whistle rang out front the guild entrance. "Are you guys truly going to start destroying this place as soon as my shift begins?" asked a falsely charming voice. The sudden sense of death hovering over them revealed Lisana's lovely face, pouting and grinning at them. Elfman sensed the potential death and sent his sister away. "Sis, no way, hey guys, we were just kidding. All in good humor," he said. "Yes, it's all fun." As she reached behind her and pushed forward a tall cart full of baked goods, everyone chortled, and the sensation abruptly vanished. "Well done, everyone, take a look at the treats I brought," she answered. "Fantastic." As he and Happy charged forward, almost toppling Lisana and the cart, Natsu exclaimed, and the short, white-haired girl giggled as Happy glomped her. "How about bringing me some sweets?" Naruto whimpered as he rearranged his clothes and put his shirt back on. "Would you rather have those treats than these?" Mirajane rearranged her dress and asked, "What?" Naruto said, "Good point, but perhaps we could combine the two." Her face lit up with astonishment at the thought. "They aren't all winners, but when actually you do have a good thought it's dead on," declared Kyuubi. "Yes, I do." "Hey," Naruto answered. "Ignore that. Let's go grab some useful items before they run out." Lucy and Kyuubi hurried behind them as Mirajane grabbed Naruto and hurried to her sister, where Natsu was already stuffing his face with pastries. Lucy arrived at the cart, where she saw a particularly delicious-looking cinnamon roll on the top shelf, quickly grabbed it, moved to the side away from everyone, and took a bite. "This tastes so good," Lucy groaned as she enjoyed the flavor. "Now, who consumed the final cinnamon roll?" A loud voice roared, and Lucy turned to see a tall, dark, and evil figure. "He's enormous," Lucy thought. "Natsu." The enormous figure stepped on the pink-haired mage and halted his attack on the candy after Naruto yelled, then he looked at Lucy. "Mew, a newbie?" he inquired. "Yeah," Lucy stammered, staring at him in disbelief as he grunted, shrank to a much smaller size, and revealed himself to be Makarov. "My name is Makarov, Master. It's good to meet you." He jumped up towards ceiling after waving at her, hitting his head and landing on the second-floor rail. He scurried to his feet and waved a thick stack of papers at them. "You idiots have done it once more." Before bringing them close to his face and beginning to read, he said, "Look at these documents I received from the council." "First is Gray," Makarov said. "What?" Gray asked. "You did a great job busting out that smuggling organization, but afterwards you went around town nude. And then you stole some drying underwear and fled," Makarov said. "But if I were nude, wouldn't that be worse?" he asked. Elfman retorted, "Then don't be naked in the first place." "Elfman, you had a mission to escort a VIP and assaulted him during the mission," Makarov went on. "Well," he said, "men are all about education, so," Elfman said, scratching the back of his head. "Don't be a fool." Then, Mirajane slapped him in the back of the head, Escalation. Makarov resumed reading, "You flirted with the granddaughter of council member Elder Raiji, Loki. We were also charged for damage compensation by a particular talent agency." He whispered too softly for anyone to hear, "She came on to me. Kana Alberona, drinking 15 large barrels of alcohol and charging it to the council," said Makarov. A drop of perspiration trickled down her face as she whispered, "They found out. You both sent the grandsons of council members Koiji and Romura to the hospital for 2 weeks, Kyuubi and Mirajane," called Makarov. They both growled at once, "Bastard should keep his hands to himself." He went on to read, "Natsu, you were successful in demolishing the Devon thief family, but you also demolished 7 other town residents' homes. You destroyed parts of Lupinus Castle, destroyed a church in Frisia, leveled a clock tower in Tully Village, and caused the Nizuna Ravine Observatory to collapse and shut down. Naruto, you saved the fleet of cargo ships of the South Port by eliminating the Buckhead pirates, but you also destroyed half the cargo in the process," Makarov said after pausing to clear his throat. "Along with blowing up a number of buildings in the market district, you also cleared out the Red City Opium Gang. In addition, they leveled Harugion's port, caused half a dozen riots, and stole from the council's armory and wine cellar. Take that, suckers, we're still number 1. Naruto and Natsu exclaimed as they leapt to their feet and held their hands in the air in a festive manner. The two shouted. "Don't be proud of it." Lisana and Mirajane slapped them both in the back of the head right away. Kyuubi muttered, shaking her head, "Idiots." Lucy thought in disbelief, those two had the most of anyone by far. He said, "Guys, the council members are always bitching and angry at me, but," and then the list in his hands caught fire. "Fuck him." "Well?" Lucy said, perplexed. The master threw the burning list aside, and Natsu leapt to his feet, catching it in his mouth like a dog. Pay attention. Reasoning is the source of the ability to overcome it. A miracle is not magic. For the first time, an embodiment will be formed when the spirit flow in nature and the spirit flow within us connect. For that, you'll need to have a strong mindset and focus. I mean, it's magic when you put your whole being into whatever you do. Your magic won't get better if you're constantly afraid that the higher authorities will crack down on you. Don't be afraid of the council's idiots. Follow your instincts. Fairy tale mages do it this way. His declaration caused the entire guild to erupt in smiles and laughter. As Lucy officially became a member of the guild, the next few hours flew by as she waited for Lasana to return and issue her member stamp while dining with Naruto and Natsu. So in that other town, Natsu, you are known as Salamander? Lucy inquired. All right, Happy replied. In her opinion, the moniker was appropriate, saying, well, I guess that description does fit your magic well. I want to be the Catmander if Natsu is the Salamander, Happy said. Why is the Mander thing happening? She asked Naruto, perplexed. Her fellow blonde said, I know he's more like a Meowth. A what? Even more perplexed, she asked. To get rid of the random thought, he shook his head and said, never mind. So, Naruto, are you a water mage? Lucy inquired. No, do you want to know my magic's true secret? Naruto inquired. Lucy eagerly leaned forward and said, yes, what is it? It's a secret, Naruto whispered into her ear as he leaned forward. Lucy pouted because he didn't answer. Lasana came up holding a bowl of ink and a stamp, saying, stop teasing her, Naruto. You desire it here? Lasana pointed to her hand and asked. Yes, Lucy answered. There, you are now a member of Fairy Tail. As she completed the mark on Lucy's hand, Lasana gave a compliment. Oh, look at you all. I received the Fairy Tail mark from her. When she showed Naruto and Natsu her mark, they glanced up from their food and quickly went back to it. Natsu deadpanned, good for you Luigi, and then bit into a flaming chicken leg. Lucy is here. Lucy let out a furious scream. Naruto slurped down more ramen and said dismissively, that does nothing for your sex appeal. A pig. Lucy screamed. Naruto, you're crazy. One of the men at their table shouted. Yes, having a hottie like that on my team would be my top priority. After finishing his meal, Natsu got up and walked away from the table with Happy, added another. Where are you guys heading? Naruto inquired. Natsu answered, I need money to get a job. Naruto suggested, you should teach Happy how to do payday. What? Natsu asked. Forget that. Naruto shook his head to dismiss that irrational thought once more. You ought to train. In that case, you wouldn't remain confined to the little boy board. Enjoy your time on those baby jobs. As Naruto leapt to the second floor, he was teased. You bastard. I could just go with him, in any case, I don't require him, Natsu declared as he began looking over the board. Look, here's one with a good reward, said Happy, pointing to one close to the top of the board. For the purpose of eliminating thieves, 160,000 jewels? Okay, Natsu said, pumping his fist. Mission, baby, from above, Naruto's voice could be heard. Hey, let me go to the next floor, old man, Natsu demanded. Not taking place, Makarov answered, take that mission and try to be more restrained this time. Makarov was sitting at the counter smoking his pipe when a little black-haired kid in a t-shirt with a smiling sun on it came up. Has my dad returned yet? He questioned Makarov. With a sigh, the elderly man answered, you're bothering Romeo. You should wait for your father at home, be a good boy, and have more faith in him if you were a mage's son. With tears in his eyes, Romeo gazed up at Makarov and said, he said he'd be back in 3 days, but it's been a week since then. I take it that Macau works at Mount Hikobe? It's not too far away, a nearby mage said. Please find him, I'm concerned for him, Romeo begged. Not at all. Your father is a sorcerer. No mage here is incapable of caring for himself. Drink your milk or something when you get home, Makarov shot back. Before leaping to his feet and striking the master in the face, Romeo clenched his fists as tears filled his eyes. Idiot. Then, stomping away, he rubbed his eyes to stop himself from crying. This place is quite strict, isn't it? Lucy asked as she took in the scene. Lizana retorted, Master may say that, but he's worried about Macau too. After listening to everything, Natsu stormed away and dragged Happy with him. He then slammed the request in his hand back into the request board, denting it. Hey, Natsu. Keep the request board intact. He was reprimanded by the man in front of the board. Well, A bewildered Lucy, perplexed by Natsu's shift in attitude, asked. The man in front of the board said, Master, I bet Natsu is going to go do something bad. He's probably going to go assist Macau. Makarov bit his pipe and said, no one can decide what he should do, leave him alone. Dumb kid, doing that will only hurt Macau's pride. With 2 distinct missions in his hands, Naruto abruptly leapt from the second story. You really ought to give him some space. He adheres to the first rule of the ninja, the blonde said, his once jolly demeanor suddenly turning grave. The first ninja rule? Lucy asked. Naruto began, those who break the rules are scum. How many times has that little line saved people's lives, especially mine that time? Lasana concluded, but those who abandon their comrades are worse than scum. According to the master, a wise policy indeed. He gave Lasana the paper in his left hand and said, oh, before I forget, Mira and your bro should enjoy that one. Taking more than one mission off the board is not permitted. Actually, I put a charm on it to stop that from happening, Makarov said. Naruto pointed up to a clone on the second floor who was waving at them and said, I took one and he took one. Well played. Makarov said. Before giving it to Lasana, Naruto scrawled, pass this along to Q. Shan when she comes back. Put an end to having Lasana serve as your secretary, Mirajane, now dressed in her battle gear, shouted as she returned. Naruto muttered, yeah, and turned to go after Natsu. Hi, blonde girl. Why have you stayed here? Go after the fools, Mira roared. Unaware of what she had done to enrage Lucy, she stammered, but. Lasana swiftly regained control of the situation. You heard the list Master read earlier about Naruto and Natsu together, nay. Shan intended to convey. Together, they can be quite boisterous, but alone, the idea nearly made Lasana shudder. I understand the image, however, I need to find a place to live, so I don't have time yet, Lucy said. There are some open areas in the girls' dorm and a few in the boys' apartment building. When you guys return, you can come visit us since they're both right next to our house. The home of Mirai and Ane. Whoa, I'm so excited. Lucy sprang to her feet and ran after them, shouting. Given how effortlessly her sister was able to control the girl, Mirajane laughed and said, you're even worse than Kyuubi now. I'm just a good soul trying to help out, Lasana said with a naive expression. Looking out the carriage window, Lucy sighed, I can't wait to visit Mirajane's house once we return. While Natsu lay down moaning from motion sickness, Naruto slept soundly across from her. As she watched the pair, Lucy thought, yeah, real danger these two are. Wonder why he's got that heavy coat. Natsu was still dressed the same way, but Naruto had switched to a heavy trench coat over his outfit, and the carriage soon came to a stop, and her fellow passengers acted in an unexpected way. When Natsu opened the carriage's back door, Lucy was struck by a blast of the freezing cold wind and almost died. The carriage driver said, we can't go any further from here. It's summertime even though we're in the mountains. This kind of snowstorm is not typical, Lucy, who was shivering, exclaimed. Naruto said, it's to be expected. The temperature is too low, Lucy stumbled, her teeth chattering. Natsu said, it's because you're not wearing much. You're not either, in response, Lucy screamed. Yes, but he stays warm thanks to his magic. Naruto draped his trench coat over her shoulders and said, here, you're not so lucky. I appreciate it, but how about you? Lucy asked, and just as she did, a second Naruto materialized before changing into a different coat. You must adore Kage Bushin. As he put it on, Naruto exclaimed. The carriage driver turned and headed back, saying, okay, I'm going back to town now. Hold on. How are we going to return? Lucy screamed as she ran after him. Natsu said, she's really noisy. Happy concurred. Shrugging, Naruto said, no much more than any other girl. In agreement, Natsu nodded and said, this is also true. Happy concurred. That's what I heard, Lucy screamed. With his pinky finger inserted into his ear, Naruto said, they also have like hearing. With another sage, like nod, Natsu said, right again. Happy concurred. As she took out one of her gate keys, Lucy complained, useless idiots. Oh. Open. The door of the clock. Horologium. A big clock was called forth in the snow, and the key sparkled with a burst of light. Whoa. It's a clock. Natsu cried out. Whoosh, enchantment. Naruto was deadpanned. As the clock closed, Lucy climbed inside to avoid the cold. The clock said, I'll stay here, she says. What brought you here? Natsu asked. I was promised a chance to visit Mirajane's house and help finding an apartment, she says. The clock responded. Naruto shrugged and said, whatever. The clock stopped the trio as they were about to leave. Hold on. What was the purpose of Macau-san's visit here? She asks. The clock said. Shaking his head, Naruto said, you came even though you didn't know? According to Natsu, he came to subdue the brutal monster, Balkan, and his partner, the Soul Eater Goki. Lucy felt a surge of anxiety. I want to go home. As Naruto, Natsu, and Happy turned to leave, the clock said, she says. Goodbye. Naruto waved over his shoulder in response. Natsu answered, yes, go ahead, says I. Happy concurred. The group stopped as they got farther into the snowstorm, and Natsu scurried around, yelling into the storm's roaring winds. Macau. Where have you gone? Where the beasts did you go? Natsu yelled. If he was done in, Naruto snorted, he wouldn't be able to respond. When the three of them heard the sound of rocks falling from higher up the mountain, they looked up to see a massive shadow that soon turned out to be a giant ape beast leaping down at them. The creature attacked Natsu with its front paws, but the dragon slayer quickly dodged the attack. It's Balkan, Happy cried out. Where is his ugly half now? Naruto inquired. Balkan abruptly jumped away from Natsu and headed for the clock that held Lucy, who had been pursuing them. Oh. A woman who is human! Exclaimed Balkan as it licked the clock. Uhooh. With Lucy still inside, Balkan snatched up the entire clock creature and ran away, roaring. Natsu mumbled incredulously, ooh. Then, as he cracked his knuckles, his flame aura appeared around him. So he can talk, huh? We can force him to tell us Macau's location, Happy said. Then we demolish him. The howler monkey is evil. With a mad expression on his face, Naruto roared and gestured with a trembling finger at the fleeing beast. How did things turn out this way? From inside the clock, Lucy yelled, and why is this monkey so excited? Balkan walked back up the mountain after picking her up, then stopped in a closed space and slammed the clock down in the middle, causing the beast to begin dancing in a circle around it. Uhooh. Uhooh. As he kept dancing all day and night, the monkey chanted. I wonder if the monkeys reside here. What became of Naruto and Natsu? Lucy pondered as she pressed her face against the clock's glass, and was startled when Balkan abruptly pressed his face against the opposite side. A woman. Balkan whispered in a deep voice. Before the clock disappeared and Lucy was left at Balkan's mercy, there was an odd noise. Time is up. Goodbye. The clock said. Remain calm. Extension. I require an extension. Lucy begged as the monkey leaned over her and pressed his face directly in front of hers, causing her to shudder in terror. Yes. I located you. Natsu's voice echoed as he walked into the room. Natsu. I'm spared. Lucy cheered. Where is Macau? Whoa. Natsu roared as he fell in front of Lucy in a rock column after slipping on the icy ground. He was so ridiculous that Lucy sighed, I guess beggars can't be choosers. Hi, monkey. Macau is where? Natsu demanded. Uho. The monkey answered. You comprehend my meaning. Natsu said, I'm talking about a man, a human man. A male? The monkey scratched his head in response. You're correct. Where did you conceal him? Natsu demanded once more. UWAH. Do you believe that he hid Macau.san? Wait, is Macau.san still alive? Said a startled Lucy. The monkey beckoned Natsu to approach him with a sudden smile. Natsu began, where? Before being lifted and flung off the mountainside. Natsu. Lucy screamed. A voice out of the shadows said, he better survive that, you stupid monkey. Once I've had my fill, you can enjoy that repulsive woman all you want. Her friend's tasty souls should be all right. I haven't seen souls so powerful in a long time. Goki, it's about time you revealed yourself. The blonde-faced Goki, leaning against the far wall, said, it makes sense that you two would be hiding up in the mountains to avoid hunters without the protection of your previous organization. Naruto then revealed himself and jumped down from the ceiling. Naruto. You must assist Natsu, Lucy cried out. Naruto answered, don't worry, Happy has it covered. All of you fairy tale punks are weaklings. Goki made fun of Macau, saying, the fool was worse than you three. Where is Macau? Naruto demanded. I put him to work because he couldn't eat garbage like that. A smirking Goki shot back, you'll have to find him yourself, he's around here somewhere. I can beat the living daylights out of you. Armor of hard rock, Gi Dao. The attack had served Naruto's main purpose, getting the upcoming messy fight away from his comrades. The bright flash of orange light faded, revealing Naruto in his hard, rock armor. The blonde warrior then stabbed his Ningata into the ground before leaping forward and launching a punch that Goki leaned to the left to dodge. Naruto's fist sunk into the side of the mountain, shaking the entire area. "Watch out, you idiot! You will bury us all if you start an avalanche," Goki roared. "Where is Macau? May I ask you again?" Naruto insisted, disregarding Goki's worries. "Fool." Goki abruptly unleashed his full power, turning into a monstrous creature with darkened skin, horns sticking out of his forehead, and enlarged fangs on his bottom teeth. He charged Naruto, attempting to land a haymaker with his left hand, but Naruto caught it, and he swung around with his right hand, but Naruto also caught that one. The two grappled, holding hands and trying to push each other backward without moving an inch. "Are you sure you can overwhelm me?" Goki roared. As he began to slowly push the beast backwards, Naruto thought, "Easily, but I have to hold back until you give up Macau's whereabouts." Lucy almost lost her feet due to the rumbling from Naruto's first attack on Goki, but she managed to stay balanced and then looked down at her kidnapper. "It is up to me to crush this perverted monkey, then, to call forth a new celestial spirit." Lucy pulled out another key and said, "Open." A door to the Golden Bull Palace. Taurus. "Moo!" roared the summoned beast as he emerged. "Lucy.san. Your breasts have never looked better." With her face palmed, Lucy said, "I forgot that he's a pervert as well." "Uho. Leave my woman alone," Balkan said. "My lady?" the bull asked. "That is a very unforgivable comment." "All right, go, Taurus." Lucy cheered. "You ought to have saw me boobs rather than me woman," Taurus went on. "That is incorrect." Lucy covered her chest and screamed. Lucy clenched her fist and thought, "I don't know how much magic power I have left for Taurus, but I just need to buy some time until Natsu returns. I used up a lot of magic on Holorogium earlier," Lucy said. "Proceed." "I am more than prepared," the bull with the axe roared as he charged the monkey. "Uho," Balkan roared as he advanced to confront the charge directly. "Do you think you can get rid of me that easily?" Natsu's voice suddenly boomed. After being thrown through the wall's side and off the mountain by Balkan, the pink-haired dragon slayer rushed in and kicked Taurus and Balkan with great force. "Geez. There are so many monsters," Natsu roared. "Not a moo.or for me," Taurus whimpered as he struck the floor. "You're a weakling. And you, how in the hell did you return here so effortlessly?" Lucy yelled at the bull before turning to face Natsu. "Happy." Natsu pointed behind her in response. "You're very welcome," as he hovered above, Happy said. "Oh, I didn't realize you had wings. Is it possible that you can handle Happy but not transportation?" asked a perplexed Lucy. Natsu gave her a second look and asked, "What are you talking about? Happy is a nakama, and not a car. You're strange." "He of people is calling me weird," Lucy said, sweating. "Right, I'm sorry. Pay attention. Every member of Fairy Tail is nakama. Lasana, Urza, Mira, from that old fart. Natsu. He's on his way." As the monkey charged Natsu, Lucy warned him, and he went on talking as though he didn't hear. He continued, "Then the annoying gray and elfman. Natsu, I understand. Be mindful of your back." As the monkey approached, Lucy cautioned. To Lucy, Happy, and Naruto, "We are all nakama." Natsu flipped over and used a foot covered in flames to kick the charging monkey in the chin. "Macau is going home with me," Natsu bellowed as Balkan crashed face first into the frozen ground. "I'll burn you as black as charcoal if you don't tell me where Macau is." The angry monkey, its face still smoking from the previous attack, scurried to its feet and began yanking icicles down from the ceiling and throwing them at Natsu quickly. The slayer stood there and chuckled as the attack did no harm and the ice melted as it touched his body. "On fire, that won't work," laughing, Natsu saw Taurus' spear stuck to the ground and picked it up. The monkey charged at Natsu, swinging the axe wildly, forcing the slayer into evasive maneuvers as he barely avoided some of the attacks. Natsu caught one of the vicious swings in front of his face, and they engaged in a battle of strength. Lucy trying to wake up her summoned spirit so that he would dispel it and the axe would disappear, but she was interrupted by a sizzling sound. Natsu's flame magic heated the axe so hot that the metal on the blade melted, and he caught a glob of the hot metal in his mouth before chewing on it and spitting it out. Natsu retracted his flame covered right hand and bounded forward with a devastating blow, declaring, "Here I come. Salamander's iron fist." Happy and Lucy applauded as the beast was thrown against the wall by the attack, knocking him unconscious while his body continued to smoke. "He's stuck," Happy cried out. Lucy sighed, Wait a second, isn't it still necessary for him to discover Macau's location? Natsu kicked a fictitious stone and snarled, crap, I overlooked it. Lucy said, now he's passed out completely. They became aware of odd noises coming from the monkey's body. What's happening? A terrified Natsu cried out, and as the body was shown to Macau, a huge puff of smoke appeared. I see that Balkan took control of him, Happy yelled. Taken over? Asked a perplexed Lucy. Happy explained, a magic used to take over the body. Oh no. Happy flew up and grabbed Natsu as he fell through, who was then grabbed by Lucy. The strain seemed too much for the girl, but the now conscious Taurus quickly helped her pull everyone up to safety. Exclaimed Natsu as he leapt up to catch Macau as he fell through the hole created by his attack. Naruto saw Macau change out of the corner of his eye and decided that enough was enough. I suppose there is no reason to keep you around anymore. Naruto leapt back and grabbed his staff, spinning it in his hand before aiming it at Goki. Before the beast could react, he struck him in the neck and then the gut. As Goki fell to the ground in agony, Naruto struck him in the face with his Ningata, sending him crashing into a wall and sliding down to the base of it. The beast, barely conscious, gasped for air as he scurried to his feet, using the wall as support. For the first time, he felt genuine fear as he looked up into his opponent's cold blue eyes. It makes sense why you had to spend so much time stealing other people's souls. You really are weak. If you truly had a soul of your own, I feel sorry for you. Naruto began to gather magical energy as he raised his Ningata above his head and began spinning it around. Iron Rock Crusher nailed the battered monster head on, blasting through the wall behind him, roared Naruto as he swung his weapon downward, unleashing a tremendous wave of magical energy that destroyed everything in its path. Ah! As the blast subsided, nothing remained of the beast. Naruto heard a rumbling sound and recalled Goki's earlier warning about starting an avalanche. He released his armor and hurried back to his companions, grinning. Screamed Goki as the attack tore his body apart. Natsu. New powder. After a few minutes, Lucy's screams could be heard as Naruto, Happy, and Natsu, all wearing cage bush and snowboards, blasted down the mountainside while carrying Lucy and Macau. Lucy, giggling, splashed the water in her bathtub and said, I can't believe I received such a great deal on this place. Lasana assisted her in locating this lovely new apartment across the street from the apartment complex where Naruto, Kyuubi, and Natsu resided after she returned from saving Macau. Natsu lived in a neighborhood that was fairly similar to her own, but she was a little envious of Naruto and Kyuubi's opulent apartment. They appeared to have dropped a piece of Mirajane's house onto the building's top floor. However, she thought to herself that Naruto would most likely reside somewhere like Natsu if it weren't for Mirajane and the other girls. As she washed her hair, Lucy sighed, if only I could afford a place like that, though this place is nice too. Lucy wrapped one towel around her body as she got out of the bath and then picked up another to pad dry her hair. Lucy danced through her apartment still wearing only a towel as she praised its features, saying, even though it normally costs 70,000 jewels, I got it for 62,500 thanks to Lasana. The spacious rooms, storage places, pure white walls, scent of woods, lil old fashioned fireplace, and lovely cooking stove make this a real steal. And here is the best part. Lucy started, but she stopped in disbelief when she walked into her room and saw Naruto on her couch, massaging her sensuously with Kyuubi on his lap. Before continuing to tend to his red-haired girlfriend, Naruto gave her a wave with one hand. Lucy, now furious, yelled, what the hell are you doing here? As she suddenly picked up a large book and used it to nip Naruto in the side of the head. This attracted Kyuubi's attention, and she hurried to appease the irate blonde. Easy. Lasana and Mira told us about your new place across the street, so we decided to visit, but we got bored waiting for you to come out the shower. Now, while rubbing the back of his head, Naruto looked closely at Lucy, examining every inch of her. Naruto gave her 2 thumbs up and smiled perversely. I must say the whole dripping wet in towel thing, definitely good for the sex appeal, he said. With fire in her eyes, Lucy yelled, you pig, as she kicked him in the face with a virtuous female rage, unintentionally flashing him while the bottom of her towel almost came undone. As he attempted to get a better look, she continued to stomp on his face until Kyuubi dragged her away from Naruto. In the afterlife of alternate universes, Jiraiya suddenly felt the urge to exclaim, way to go, brat. The redhead cupped the blonde girl's chest through the towel and gave her a back hug. You know, we were thinking of christening this place if you took any longer in the bath, but since it's your place, it would only be fair if you joined in on it, Kyuubi said in a husky whisper in her ear. Lucy's face flushed from embarrassment and rage. She yelled, not you too. as she threw them both from her room and slammed the door to get dressed. From where he landed on the floor, Naruto declared, "She's way too fun to rile up. Next time let's pretend like we're actually doing it when she comes out." Kyuubi laughed in agreement. Lucy cried out, "No way in hell," as the door opened momentarily to reveal another book that would nail Naruto in the head. Lucy had an irritated expression on her face as she sat slouched in a wooden chair in her kitchen. The blonde complained, "Trespassers. Criminals. You guys lack morals." She dressed in blue capri pants and a black shirt, served her intruders a cup of tea, and was now attempting to persuade them to leave. It wasn't functioning. "That's not very nice," Naruto said, sticking his tongue out at her. "You're being mean," Kyuubi added, pouting. Lucy became even more irate and yelled, "I'm the one who's been violated here." Kyuubi proposed, "Well, we could still do that in a good way." "No way," Lucy cried indignantly. At this point, she was unable to determine which of the two was worse. "Hey, this is interesting," Naruto said as she began to read a random stack of papers that was on her desk. Seeing that they were her written work, Lucy grabbed them and held them close to her chest while glaring accusingly at Naruto, saying, "That's none of your business." Shrugging his shoulders, Naruto said, "What? I was just curious." "Go home already if you're just going to bother me," Lucy grumbled. "How rude, we came to visit you," exclaimed Kyuubi, feigning offense. "I just moved and I don't even have furniture yet, just go home, there is nothing to do here," Lucy begged. After a blank look from the couple, Kyuubi remembered something and stuck her finger in the air. Kyuubi pulled out a scroll and dragged her finger across the seal, opening it to reveal multiple boxes and pieces of furniture. "Oh, that reminds me. Mirajane likes to keep her house up to date with the latest furniture and accessories, so she gets new style every season. Lasana usually just donates the old stuff to charity, but since you just moved." Lucy drooled over the sight of Mirajane's furniture, before turning and bowing to Kyuubi as if she were a supreme deity. "Thank you, thank you, thank you," she said. Kyuubi casually said, "Well, you could do us a favor," while feigning to check her fingernails. Lucy looked at them suspiciously now that she knew she had been set up. "What kind of favor?" she said cautiously. As she finished speaking, Natsu stormed into her apartment, followed shortly after by Happy and Lasana. The pink-haired mage asked sourly, "We got the maid outfit. Is she ready to go or what?" Lucy simply looked at them in shock and said, "Maid outfit." Natsu received a back of the head slap from Lasana. Lasana reprimanded him, says, "That was rude. You were supposed to knock," and then talks to Lucy. "I picked out the outfit. You're going to love it, it's so cute." Lucy kept looking at them in shock, saying, "Maid outfit." Kyuubi piqued her interest by coughing. As she handed the job posting to Lucy, Kyuubi sheepishly said, "Well, there is a job out there we could use your help with." Lucy read the posting and became excited at the 200,000 jewel reward after first noticing the highlighted warning that the Duke of Everloo is a big pervert and womanizer. She understood why they wanted her when she saw the note stating that he was trying to hire a blonde maid. "It's easy, you've got blonde hair, you can sneak in. Then we can get the book," said Natsu. Lucy said in an overly dramatic manner, "The only reason you came to me is because I have blonde hair. Planning this from the beginning, how cruel." Declaring, Naruto slammed his fist against the table, "I told you she wouldn't do it. Just let me use the Oryoke no Jutsu." Then Kyuubi put an end to that line of thought by slamming his head face first into the kitchen table, saying, "That technique is forbidden. Oh, I should inform you that job sheet is a bit out of date. The reward was bumped up to 2 million, told Lasana. 2 million. Why didn't you say so earlier? She drooled as dollar signs appeared in her eyes. Naruto drew her in even more when he realized that this tactic was working much better. "Oh, and you'll only be working Kyuubi. Natsu and I will be working on a different job in the same area. So you'll get half the cut." Lucy showed up at her front door in a blur, ready to get to work. She said, "Let's go, what are you losers waiting for?" When Natsu handed Naruto a couple of bills, he said, "I've been telling you for years, Natsu, with women money talks." Suddenly, a book appeared and struck him in the head once more. As he rubbed the lump that was growing on his head, Naruto complained, "That girl must be part bat." With her hands on her hips and a hint of disappointment, Levi stood in front of the job board at the guild and said, "Aw man. Someone took that 200,000 job at the Duke of Everloo's mansion already." As she cleared a nearby table, Mirajane said, "Yeah, Kyuubi is apparently teaming up with Lucy for that job." Frustrated, Levi sighed, "Too bad, that looked like easy money." Makarov said, "Levi, it's probably best that you didn't take that job." "Ah, Guild Master. Levi exclaimed as he looked up in surprise. That job just became even more troublesome. I just got in touch with the client, began Makarov. He was interrupted when Mirajane asked, the job was cancelled? No. Makarov added in a lighthearted manner, a cunning smile spreading across his face. The reward was upgraded to 2 million jewels. Or so I was told. Everyone erupted in astonishment at once, exclaiming, 10 times more, 2 million for one lousy book. Gray sat off to the side, laughing and smoking his cigarette as the whole guild was aflutter with excitement over this new revelation. The black-haired mage thought, 2 million huh? Sounds like I'm missing out on an interesting mission. A deep baritone voice behind him said, I assure you the one we've got lined up is much more interesting. He turned to see Naruto and Elfman grinning and standing behind him. Naruto and Elfman turned and headed for the exit, saying, Common, Natsu's waiting outside for us. As he got up and extinguished his cigarette, Gray complained, you could have picked a better fourth. I could tell Urza which pair of morons nearly destroyed her favorite restaurant last week when she gets back, replied Naruto. Gray went pale all of a sudden. Or we could tell my sister who put the hole in her pantry wall during her last party. Elfman made the suggestion. Gray, now as white as a sheet, replied, Touché. Makarov sighed deeply as he watched the three leave and meet up with Natsu and Happy outside the building. This is going to be a nightmare. What's the matter? Mirajane inquired. With tears in his eyes, Makarov said, I'll be buried in paperwork by the council for weeks, between Gray, your brother, your boyfriend, and Natsu on the same mission. As the little wooden carriage slid along the dirt road through the verdant grass and short trees of the countryside, Lucy sighed peacefully and gazed out the window. The fact that she was going to start her first official job as a guild member was almost unbelievable to her. The red-haired travel companion asked Lucy, This is a really easy job, right? Not too much trouble at all? With a slight smirk on her face, Kyubi raised an eyebrow in response to the question, saying, You didn't seem too keen on helping out until you found out what the reward was. Lucy pumped her fist in the air and said, Well, this is my first official job. I want to make a good impression. I'll do my best. Just sneak in and get the book, then get out right? The reward wouldn't be for 2 million if it was really that simple. I should warn you that this mission is a lot more dangerous than it appears. The Duke of Everloo is not merely a perverted old man. He's involved in organized crime, which means we'll have to fight our way out at some point, responded Kyubi. The final line of her statement, fight our way out, made Lucy a little pale. Kyubi dismissed her concerns, Don't worry too much. I can handle whatever thugs he's trudged up. You just make sure the perverted old fart takes the bait. I'm just the bait. Couldn't we have brought Lasana along? She does shape-shifting magic. She could be the bait, Lucy exclaimed as she went into full panic mode. As she responded, Kyubi's expression abruptly became solemn. She doesn't really do missions anymore. With a hint of worry in her voice, Lucy asked, Why not? Something happened to her? The brunette sighed. Not my place to tell, but let's just say there was an incident and leave it at that. Besides, I am perfectly capable handling things if you get caught. Lucy, who was now interested, said, Wait, I haven't seen you do any magic yet. What type of mage are you? Lucy scowled in dismay as Kyubi responded, Technically I'm not a mage. You'll see soon enough. Then she suddenly realized something. The blonde asked, Hey, if we're going to the same place, why didn't those guys come with us? It's a short way, and Naruto didn't want to pay extra if Natsu puked on the seats. Kyubi was deadpanned. On the way to Shiro Sume Town, Gray, frustrated, said, Why did we decide to travel on foot? As the four mages and cat ascended a steep hill. Breathing heavily, the ice mage trailed behind the group. He certainly wished he had taken the carriage now. Elfman said, Real men have stamina, from above. Condescendingly, Naruto added, Yet another reason why Gray is still a virgin. Natsu pointed his finger at Gray and roared with laughter. The dark-haired mage shot back, I don't know what you're laughing for, punk. There's no way an idiot like you's gotten laid. You wouldn't know what to do. With loud laughter, Naruto, Natsu, Happy, and Elfman fell to the ground at this statement. Oh, man. That's hilarious. No really knows who writes Icha Icha, shouted Elfman. With a, I told you so, gesture, Naruto shook his finger at him and said, I told you the greatest prank ever pulled. Natsu yelled, Everyone still thinks it's you, and rolled on the ground, slamming his fist. Gray looked at them all as if they were crazy. Lucy and Kyubi hurried to their client's opulent residence as soon as they got to town. Lucy said, This mansion is spectacular. Well, You must be loaded if you're going to spend $2 million to get a book, Kyubi said casually as she knocked on the door. A voice from inside said, please tell me your name. Kyubi began, yeah, we're from Mage Guild Fairy, but the voice interrupted. The voice said, SSHH, please be quiet. Kyubi huffed. Could you come around and enter through the back door please? The client and his wife greeted the pair as they made their way to the back entrance. I'm sorry about earlier, I'm the client Kirby Melon and this is my wife, said Kirby. It's no problem. Kyubi answered. They all sat down and immediately got to work. There is only one thing I am asking you to do. The one and only copy of Daybreak the Duke of Everloo owns, I want you to destroy it, stated Kirby. Lucy asked, so we're not stealing it? I am asking you to destroy someone's possession without their permission. You might as well call it stealing. Kirby evaded the question. I was expecting you to ask us to retrieve the book he took from you, said Kyubi. No, I do not wish to have it. I cannot forgive the existence of that book, replied Kirby. As she and Lucy left, Kyubi said, well, thank you for your time. We'll get on it right away. As they walked away, Lucy wondered, what did he mean by that? I can't forgive its existence. Kirby's wife asked, do you think it was wise to trust such a job to those girls? He gave a long sigh. The other guild that tried last week failed. The Duke dismissed it as nothing more than a failed robbery, she went on. He began, I know. But was interrupted. There is no doubt security has been tightened, so getting into the mansion will be even more difficult, she said. Kirby began to cry and leaned over, letting out another sigh. I know that, but, he said. That book must be removed from this world. Looking through his binoculars, Gray said, are you sure that information was accurate? Everything here looks completely normal. At the edge of the forest that surrounded the Duke of Everloo's mansion complex, the team set up shop. The Duke of Everloo is nothing more than a crook. He uses his position as a nobleman to cover up the fact that he's the main money launderer for the Black Creek Club. They're one of the top crime syndicates out there. They were behind that incident, told Naruto. Natsu's face instantly twisted into a frown. The pink-haired mage whispered, the Black Creek Club. Elfman sensed his mood shift and reflected it. Elfman sneered, that's right bro, it's those bastards. Naruto kept providing background details. The midget bastard has been using this job posting as a means of turning a profit by having his associates gamble on the battles between the mages and his guards. Naturally he pissed off a couple guilds with his little scheme and the higher-ups sent him some new bodyguards. Who? Gray inquired. According to Elfman, the mercenary demon squad known as the Four Saint Beasts. I heard of them. They're a ruthless bunch of assholes by reputation, said Gray. They're also damn good, since that reputation is all anyone has on them. No names, aliases, or skills have been found on them since no one has survived a fight with them. Provided a frustrated Naruto. Natsu said, so, how are we going to do this? Well, each beast is guarding a safe. In one of those safes is our target, his ledger. We are supposed to be working in tandem with the girls using their entry into the mansion looking for that book as a diversion for us to sneak in and steal the ledger. Naruto replied with a smile. Natsu pouted, that's no fun. Naruto smiled, and his friends quickly followed suit. I said that's what we're supposed to do. We're actually doing this the fun way. In a statement rather than a question, Elfman answered, bust down the door to get their attention, and everybody gets one? Naruto agreed with him. I drew up a makeshift map of the place based on the scouting by my clones. We used Janken to decide who goes where. The following day, Lucy and Kyubi stood calmly at the mansion complex's main gates, waiting for someone to come answer their call. Lucy was dressed as a maid, and Kyubi was carrying a clipboard while wearing a professional outfit with pinstripes in black and white. Kyubi called out once more, hello? Is anyone here? We're here from the Icha maid agency regarding your ad. A giant, obese woman wearing a maid outfit that was too small appeared and landed in front of them as the ground suddenly rumbled and bubbled up next to them before opening. The maid demanded in a menacing manner, who are you? In a friendly gesture, Kyubi held out her hand and said, I'm Riza Lake from Icha maid agency, and this is Maria, one of our contract maids, here to apply for your blonde-haired mage position. Master. The maid said, turning her head back towards the hole she had just emerged from after staring at her outstretched hand. Did somebody say Icha? A voice came from the tunnel that the giant maid had just created. A few seconds later, a round form made a silly dance as it flew through the tunnel and landed. The Duke of Everloo exclaimed, Boyo. I heard it. Someone said Icha. He's here. Lucy stumbled as she saw the monstrous man up close. This guy. He's ridiculous. Kyubi looked at the man, nearly bursting with laughter, barely able to keep her composure. Kyubi took a phony business card from her clipboard and gave it to the man, saying, "You are right, sir. As I previously stated, I am Riza Lake from the Icha Icha Maid Agency." The Duke said wistfully, "I would have started using your maid agency long ago, but I didn't know you guys had one." "Well, the truth is we only cater to the most exclusive clients. With your recent increase in wealth and status, one of your business associates recommended you would be interested, and after seeing your posted ad we decided to offer our services," said Kyubi. "That's fantastic," the Duke said. With a presenting manner, Kyubi drew Lucy in front of her and said, "Today I brought with me one of our top-trained maids, Maria. She fits the sexy blonde maid description you were looking for." After that, the Duke examined Lucy from head to toe. "I'm getting creeps from him. Just wait a little while longer," a tense Lucy thought. The Duke waved her away, dismissively saying, "Rejected. This one is too ugly, bring me another." Lucy almost passed out from shock. "Sir, Maria is our top-ranked blonde maid. She's received raved reviews from all our other clients," asked Kyubi. "Not good enough. 5 more of his maids show up out of nowhere. They were all among the world's most repulsive women." The sight of them nearly made Kyubi throw up. The Duke laughed cheesily and said, "I only go for the sexy ladies like these, boyoyoyo." "Oh master!" the maids cried, their eyes full of affection. After merely nodding, Kyubi grabbed Lucy, who was frozen in shock, and pulled her ass out of there before she puked. The Duke of Everloo smoked a cigar while lounging in a big chair inside his mansion. Behind him, 3 shadowy figures loomed, one of them in a hooded cloak. The cloaked figure remarked, "Sir, it appears that the mages have broken through the perimeter." Twisting his mustache, the Duke turned in his chair and faced the empty back wall of the room. "Excellent, now the games will really be interesting. Connect us with today's players." "As you wish." The hooded figure twisted the staff in his hand and chanted, "Egardus Portus." 4 lightning beams lit up a quarter of the wall, each of which resembled a projection screen. A projection of 4 men sitting in chairs, one with his face obscured by shadow, appeared on each section of the wall. "Welcome, gentlemen. As you can see, a group of mages has once again taken up the job of retrieving that little book from me. Last time our fun was cut short as neither of the mages made it past my initial defense wave. However, we've got better competition this time. These girls came from Fairy Tail," declared the Duke. The man on the far left said, "Fairy Tail mages are supposedly halfway decent, should be interesting. I've read of those fools. They're just as liable to blow up half your complex than to complete the job. This is easy money." The man in front of him grumbled. The third man said, "What happened to Moroku?" "Yes, our former associate nobleman Moroku met with an untimely accident and will no longer be joining us," told the Duke. "Hey, the old fool got caught in his office with his secretary by his wife. She beat the crap out of him, took his money, and ran off with the secretary," said the man in the shadows. The shadows lifted to reveal a slightly effeminate man with red hair wearing a sophisticated red suit. "Ah, well informed as always. Our new player, famous author those little orange books, Akira Rose," came the voice. Akira Rose. The man on the far left stumbled. The person next to Akira asked, "The author of Icha Icha? Pleased to make your acquaintances. As a show of gratitude for accepting me into your little game, I've sent you all an autographed pre-released copy of my next book. I do hope to find some inspiration from today and future gatherings," said Akira. "This time, Duke, you've really outdone yourself," said the second man. A loud explosion interrupted the Duke as he said, "Save you gratitude for after I've taken all your money, now." The Duke bellowed, "Captain, what's happening?" "Sir, we have more intruders. This seems to be a separate group who have busted down the rear wall of the complex," replied the man in a mask. "Well, have you and your men manned their positions? No doubt this was the strike you were sent here to prevent. Gentlemen, it looks like the games have gotten even more interesting. Now who wants to start the bets?" When the explosion occurred, Lucy and Kyubi had just slipped through a second-story window into the mansion. Lucy cried out, "What the hell just happened?" as she collapsed to the ground. "Those idiots abandoned the plan." Kyubi sighed. This time, she was hoping to genuinely enjoy herself. "Let's go. Only weaklings stand in our way now." Lucy just pointed panickingly over Kyubi's shoulder without replying. The redhead looked at the whole group of the Duke's maids, under the command of their giant leader. "Intruders!" yelled the giant maid in charge. "Die, ugly bitches!" Kyubi yelled as she charged the repulsive creatures, her hands abruptly changing into claws. Lucy could only watch in disbelief as Kyubi sat on top of a stack of unconscious maids after a brief period of red blur. As she got off the pile, Kyubi commanded, "What are you staring at? Let's go. I bet the next ones are even weaker." Lucy followed, still in disbelief, and could only nod absently. With a group of low-level thugs who were unconscious and a destroyed rear wall behind them, the Natsu and company advanced through the complex's rear courtyard. Naruto said, "Sorry guys, I figured those thugs would have been a better warm-up." Elfman grumbled, "They just don't make low-level thugs like they used to." Natsu added, "Ain't that the truth?" Happy concurred. Naruto said, "Well, I guess we should split up from here." "Meet up at the front door when we're done," Gray said. Naruto responded with a shrug, "Where else?" They all started off in different directions after that. Without any more disruptions, Lucy and Kyubi were able to make their way to the Duke's library. Now, for daybreak, the two were looking through his book collection. Lucy put a book back on the shelf and said, "That Duke of Everloo may look stupid, but he has a good collection of books." "Sure. That's why this entire wall over here seems to be devoted to smut," Kyubi snorted from her position across the room. Lucy put a romance novel back on the shelf and said, "Well, these over here seem to be good. If he reads these books, I'll respect him a little bit." Looking at the tall shelves they had not yet searched, Kyubi complained, "Searching through all these is going to be a pain in the ass." Lucy held up a golden book and said, "Hopefully we'll get Luke." "Hey, I found it, Daybreak by Kemu Zalen." "Good. Burn it and we can bail before this place is burned to the ground," instructed Kyubi. "No way. I want to read it. I'm a big fan of Kemu Zalen, he's a mage as well as an author. This must be one of his unpublished works," Lucy yelled. Kyubi reminded him, "Who cares? Our job is to burn it." "This book is a cultural heritage. We can't burn it," Lucy said, staring at her in horror. "If we don't do the job, we don't get paid. The 2 million remember?" Kyubi said impatiently, tapping her foot in mild annoyance. Lucy said, "We can burn another book and say it was this one. I can't read the book if we destroy it," in a moment of surprise. Two shadowed figures were revealed when one of the doors slammed open, letting smoke roll into the room. The shorter one said, "You hear that, brother? She wants to keep the book." The taller one answered, "We could always bury her with it, but Mama always says not to leave any evidence behind." As soon as Kyubi entered the light, he realized they were a pair of mercenaries. Kyubi asked boredly, "The Vanish brothers from the Southern Wolves Mercenary Guild? Is this the best he can do?" The taller brother remarked, "The little girls from Fairy Tail don't seem so impressed." Kyubi's eye twitched in irritation. "Little girl? Lucy, you have until I'm finished with these clowns to read that book." Lucy squealed, "Thank you," and rushed into another room to read. The bald brother said, "Looks like your companion abandoned you." Her evil gleam and spike of murderous intent stopped the brothers cold. "That's actually worse for you. You see, without her around I can really cut loose," she said. Lucy had just pulled out her reading glasses to read more quickly when the Venture brothers' horrified cries compelled her to pick up and relocate to a different room. Lucy muttered to herself as she scurried off, note to self: "Do not anger Kyubi." The Duke's mercenary's performance irritated him a little, but he was sure he would make up his losses in the following betting session. "Check to see if I can rehire anyone from that guild," he railed in silence. One of the gamblers gloated, "Ha, Everloo, you're losing money on those girls. Who cares about the little bitches? The real money is on the mysterious intruders about to take on the 4 Saint Beasts," said the Duke. An enthralled Akira said, "Impressive. 4-on-1 gives them a good shot to actually win a few." The Duke declared, "All right, so the wager is how many beasts do you think they can defeat? 250,000 on only one, 750,000 on two, 600,000 on none." An uncannily serene Akira said, 5 million on all 4. "Whoa, looks like the rookie is out of his element here." "Yeah, with that bet alone, he'll double your fortune, Duke. Or wipe me out." Duke thought, a little uneasy. "However, these are the Saint Beasts. They're unbeatable. I'll definitely come out ahead." "Looks like I'll be rolling in your dough soon enough, Akira. The fact that the intruders will lose is sure thing," said the Duke. "If I've learned one thing from my forays in romance, it's that there is no such thing as a sure thing," Akira responded. "Except this." A fellow gambler sneered. Of the 4 beasts, Elfman was certain he had landed on the most obnoxious foe. Unfortunately for Elfman, the entire room in which they were fighting was made of stone, and Genbu, his opponent, was made entirely of stone and had the ability to merge with it. Genbu sank back into the ground, and Elfman grumbled, "This is like a shitty version of whack-a-mole." No matter where he was hiding, Elfman could always detect him. Genbu kept popping in and out of nowhere, so Elfman decided to cut it short. As his arm turned to metal, Elfman roared, "I'm going to smash you into rubble. Let's go." Beast arm. Iron Bull. Himself. Elfman waited for Genbu and leapt straight up when he attempted to re-emerge from the ceiling directly above him and strike with his tail. "Gotcha!" Elfman yelled as he broke the stone beast into smaller pieces with an uppercut that went directly to Genbu's face. Elfman looked at the heap of stones that had once been Genbu and grumbled, "That was way too easy." Genbu's voice yelled, "Do you really think this is over?" The stones abruptly rose into the air and began to move until Genbu was reformed. Genbu threw his arms forward, causing them to dissolve into smaller stones and shoot at Elfman. "Your blows are nothing to me. I'll regenerate from even the strongest attacks," he exclaimed. After using his mental arm to protect himself from the assault, Elfman charged at Genbu, who retreated into the earth. Observing the trajectory of the stones that were still above ground, Elfman made a guess as to where Genbu would next appear and struck the stone beast once more, causing his body to disintegrate. Genbu's voice roared, "Fool! Your attacks are nothing," as he continued to shoot Elfman with the stone parts of his body rather than reforming. The fragments flew at him, but as Genbu reformed, Elfam saw one stone in the center of them all glow red, so he grabbed it and moved to the opposite side of the room. As he turned around, Elfman burst out laughing. "Looks like this piece was important after all," he laughed. When Genbu realized his head was where his crotch should have been, he yelled, "Huh! What did you do?" As he crushed the stone in his hand, Elfman asked himself, "I wonder what will happen if I do this." No, suddenly exploding, Genbu was reduced to a heap of stone dust. As he reversed his metamorphosis, Elfman grumbled, "That was way too easy. I would take his powers. If they weren't so lame. Ah, there it is. A floor safe." Elfman pondered how to reach the contents of the safe without damaging it as he leaned over it on the floor. The passageway ended at a vacant space illuminated by torches as Natsu and Happy walked down its steps to reach their destination. The rest was completely dark, with the exception of the space nearest the stairs. Rocks began to shake loose in the cavern as soon as the two of them stepped inside due to loud roars. As though nothing were wrong, the pink-haired mage and his feline companion continued on their journey. As the two made their way through the cavern, Natsu filled his fist with fire to illuminate the surrounding area. Happy asked his partner, "So what do you think our beast is going to be?" "Who knows? I just hope it's strong," shrugged Natsu. Before long, they came to a distant, lit aperture. They discovered that the opening led to a sizable room that was illuminated by torches and other lights. The room's flooring was stone tiles, as opposed to the cavern's rough surface. It began to feel like a battlefield of some kind. The roaring they continued to hear came from the back of the room and was now nearly deafening. It came to an abrupt halt when the roaring creature, a humanoid saber-toothed Tajera, came out of the darkness. His cheeks were bared by the size of his two lower canines. His face and body were marked with gray claws, and his fur was light blue. In addition, he had olive green hair with a mane cascading down his back and yellow eyes with black pupils. He wore a red sash belt and a toga with leg warmers made of animal skin. Natsu yelled, "Hey, it's a really big cat," with surprise. A furious beast snarled, "Pitiful weaklings. Prepare yourselves, it's been a while since I've had a good meal." Natsu stumbled, shocked, "Oh, and he talks just like you, or something." "Aye, but he's kind of mean. Maybe he hasn't had any good fish. Hey, maybe we could him to Naruto so he can have a cat companion," shouted joyfully. In response, Natsu said, "Yeah. Then they could go on adventures like us," with an odd sparkle in his eye. Immediately, the two began a rambling conversation about the kinds of adventures Naruto could have with a talking tiger. At their stupidity, the beast snarled. As Natsu and Happy carried on daydreaming, Bayako yelled angrily, "This is what they send me." Bayako, the white tiger, the great predator of the Saint Beasts, reduced to fighting an idiot teenager and his pet. "This is the best hunt I can get." The white tiger snorted and grumbled, "These idiots aren't even worth my time." After removing a few hairs from his mane, the enormous battle cat infused them with some of his power and threw them forward. 4 tiny green creatures that resembled tigers emerged from the hairs, all of them snarling and growling at Natsu and Happy. "Beasts go," Bayako ordered. Natsu had to act as the creatures charged at the two. Happy grew wings and soared above Natsu to give him room. As the creatures got closer, the pink-haired mage burned his hands. After avoiding the first beast's attempt to chomp his head off, He used its claws to block the second beast's swipe. The third jumped to try to jump on him, but he rolled away from the second and into the path of the fourth, which was coming straight at him. Salamander's iron fist. The flame. Enhanced blow struck the beast squarely in the face, and its smoldering body felt its maker's feet. His left foot caught fire as he leaned to the left to avoid being struck by one of the other beasts from behind. Salamander's claw. The roundhouse kick powered by flames sliced through the beast's side like a hot knife to butter. The beast's two halves caught fire and eventually turned to ash. Bayako was impressed by how easily two of his creations could be disposed of. The two beasts that remained moved back in front of Natsu and glowed red as Bayako gave them more energy. He said, "It looks like they sent some decent prey after all. Don't get too cocky, boy. The beasts are an extension of myself and feed of my energy." That was only a small portion. The size and ferocity of the two beasts doubled. "Bring it on, kittens." Natsu sneered off. The animals lunged at him, trying to rip his face off. He had a few near misses and escaped several blows from beasts. One of the beasts finally tried to pounce by leaping at him once more. He reached up and grabbed its tail after dodging as it passed overhead. To increase his strength, he lit his arms on fire and swung the first beast into the second by its tail. Natsu jumped high into the area facing them, and both creatures slammed roughly into the wall. Both monsters were destroyed by Natsu's Salamander's wing attack, as he erupted two streams of fire from his flaming hands. Then Happy grabbed him by the back and dragged him away from Bayako's energy darts. The giant tiger let out another earth-shaking roar, and Natsu plugged his ears in frustration at the loss of his beasts. "Foolish human. I'll rip you apart and eat you myself," Bayako called out, raising his fists and launching himself at his now airborne target with a surge of energy in the middle of his fingers. Happy's skillful flying allowed them to escape the attacks unharmed and quickly made their way to Bayako. Bayako blocked Natsu's flame enhanced kick as he jumped out of Happy's grasp. Bayako's toga was torn off when Natsu slashed him across the chest. Natsu was thrown against the wall after the white tiger seized him by the leg. Natsu slammed hard against it and then slid to the ground. Bayako put his hands around his throat and unleashed an energy blast powered by screams, saying, "Your little attacks won't hurt me, boy. It's time to step it up a notch." As it struck the ground, leaving a massive crater as everything the attack touched turned to ash, Natsu scurried to avoid it. Bayako launched another barrage of attacks, yelling, "Ha ha ha! My tiger scream destroys anything it touches. Eventually you'll have nowhere left to run." Natsu complained as he ducked the subsequent barrage of blows, "I could use some fire right about now." Happy heard his partner and looked around the room for something that might be helpful. Seeing that a good chunk of Bayako's toga was still on the floor, he swooped over and snatched up one of the room's torches, then dropped it on the toga to light it. Happy shouted, "Natsu!" to warn him. Natsu exclaimed, "You rock, Happy!" as he dashed toward the flame, dodging explosions along the way. He picked up his food, togo, and proceeded to eat the flames while dodging explosions. "Spicy!" Natsu cried as he finished his meal and covered his body with flames. He observed the quantity of ash that accumulated from Bayako's careless attacks throughout the room. Naruto sprinted in Bayako's direction before plunging into a slide and launching ash into the air to block Bayako's view as he passed. Bayako roared, blinded, "What is this?" Natsu appeared directly in front of Bayako, letting out his enormous breath of fire at close range. "Your screams are weak. They should be more like this, Salamander's roar," he exclaimed. Bayako's charred skeleton was all that was left when the flame extinguished. Natsu said, "A little too well done." Happy concurred. Natsu lit his hands on fire and asked, "Now, where is that safe?" Gray discovered a blue dragon insignia on the door of the target room. Unexpectedly, Gray found himself in a sizable empty room covered in dense fog when he opened the door. Gray looked around and said, "This fog is laced with magical energy." A menacing voice that seemed to emanate from everywhere in the fog said, "How delightful that one of you managed to make it this far." An agitated Gray shot back, "Cut the spook voice crap and show yourself." In response, the voice said, "As you wish." Gray was momentarily blinded by a flash of white light after white lightning crackled in front of him. Most of the fog had cleared by the time he was able to see again, and a tall, slender figure was standing across from him. The figure had black facial hair, pale green skin, and a dark blue cap over his hair. He was dressed in a blue martial arts robe with a blue dragon image around his shoulder and a large white strap tied at the waist. "I, Seryu the Blue Dragon, will have the pleasure of executed the last of you intruders," he said. "The last?" said Gray, laughing, We all split up so we each got our own fight. Seiryu smirked evilly at this point, roaring as he glowed with energy and some of the dense fog returned to the room. Fool, together you may have stood a chance at defeating one of us. Individually you've sealed your fate. Seiryu channeled his power into his fist by bringing it backwards while crouching. Ice Dragon! Seiryu exclaimed, launching his attack with a luminous fist. A section of the ground where Gray stood froze, and he jumped to his left to avoid the attack. You're not so special. Freeze! Gray's spell made Seiryu jump to the right, while a portion of the wall behind him froze. Such weak attack power. My Ice Dragon technique is far superior, Seiryu laughed. Gray almost collapsed on his face. Gray yelled angrily, you idiot, it's the same attack. Gray shook his head at the folly of his opponent and swore again. Ice Make. Hammer. A massive ice hammer materialized above Seiryu's head and slammed down in his direction. Quickly, he covered his right fist with ice and swung upward, landing his punch in the middle of the hammer's face. Ice Dragon Fist. The ice hammer broke upon impact into tiny ice fragments that briefly lingered in midair before congregating around Seiryu's left fist and right foot. He rushed after Gray, his limbs now covered in ice. In response to the attack, Gray used a spell to keep his opponent at bay. Ice Make. Shield. As Seiryu stepped forward and kicked him, Gray remained steadfast behind his shield of ice that had formed some 20 feet in front of him. Ice Dragon Claw. Seiryu's ice covered leg easily penetrated Gray's shield and nailed his right shoulder. Seiryu then used his other ice covered limb to deliver an uppercut that nailed Gray in the chin and sent him crashing into the wall. With a groan, Gray collided with the wall and then slid to the ground. He rubbed his aching jaw and spit out some blood, then grimaced. This bastard fights like Natsu, damn it, he's got to be a killer. As he rubbed his shoulder, which was fortunately unharmed by the previous assault, Gray thought, I need to change my approach. Seiryu looked down on his defeated opponent patronizingly, a little let down that Gray was not turning out to be a good fight. Do you see how futile this battle is? A weakling ice mage like yourself is no match for the power of the Ice Dragon, Seiryu grumbled. Gray retorted, don't get too cocky. I know girls who hit harder than you. Gray decided to test a theory after noticing something strange about Seiryu's fighting style while mentally reliving the battle. Ice Make. Floor. Gray slammed his hands down on the floor, forming a thick layer of ice over half of it. This spell only covered the floor in his half of the room with ice, and Seiryu now looked down, perplexed. Seiryu said, in a tone full of conceit and superiority, fool, you're only wasting your energy. Don't worry, I'll make your end swift. With the fog swirling around him, he ducked and drew his fist back, ready to strike again. In the process, Gray used his right hand to form an ice bow. Calmly, Gray said, you've already lost this fight. With a tone of disdain for Gray's assertion, Seiryu yelled, fool, I'll show you no mercy. Ice Dragon. Leaping forward and to the left, Gray quickly evaded the attack. In retaliation, he formed 4 ice arrows in his own attack. Ice Make. Arrows. Seiryu had to dodge as Gray shot the 4 arrows in quick succession, but the dark-haired demon misjudged his landing and slipped on the icy floor that Gray had previously made. His left leg was pierced by one of Gray's arrows that landed true. Seiryu was caught off guard by Gray's last blow as he hauled the arrow from his leg. Ice Make. Lance. Seiryu was impaled through the chest and into the back wall by a massive ice lance that sprang forward from Gray. Seiryu coughed up blood violently and gasped, how? You're an insult to both slayers and ice mages. Nothing more than a thug with a lot of energy trying to get by on half your lessons. A real slayer would have consumed the ice I layered the floor with and definitely not have slipped on it. A real master of ice techniques would have more than 2 moves. Be gone. In a brilliant burst of magical energy, Seiryu screamed at this point before passing away and disappearing. Abruptly, the room twisted and shifted, then reformed as a typical hallway with a door at the end. Gray entered the Duke's master bedroom after opening the door. Without hesitation, he went to the safe and began to open it. Naruto arrived at his destination with ease. A short tower rose from the mansion's south side. He entered through the open window and discovered himself in a. As he took off his cloak, Suzaku said, how unfortunate for you, for of all the choices you ended up facing me. Suzaku, the leader of the Saint Beasts. Naruto grinned and said, yes, how unfortunate. He was thrilled to have the leader for his battle. Suzaku sensed his excitement and responded, ah, an eager warrior, very well, I will grant you a worthy final battle. Naruto remarked casually, I guess it would be too much for you to step aside and let me have the safe. Why should I? Soon the other Saint Beasts will have defeated your companions and the game will be over, replied Suzaku. Suzaku's confident expression quickly turned to bewilderment as Naruto kept glaring down at him while grinning. You'd do well not to underestimate the mages of fairy tale. Suzaku had to move fast to avoid a Naruto advancing on him from behind with the Rasengan after the Naruto facing him disappeared in a column of smoke. Naruto launched the unsuccessful attack from his hand after he grabbed him and threw him towards the ceiling. A huge opening to the outside was created when the Rasengan burst through the ceiling. After a mid-air somersault, Naruto landed on his feet across from Suzaku once more. I must say that attack of yours is quite powerful, almost as strong as the legendary blasts created by your armors. Suzaku was intrigued by the brief display of abilities and said, if you could actually manage to hit me with one, you might stand a chance. Naruto was impressed rather than frustrated by the missed attack, saying, this guy is unquestionably the leader now. This should be an amazing battle because of his amazing natural reaction time. As lightning flashed and thunder reverberated above them in the overcast sky, Suzaku raised his left arm palm up and said, I must say I love what you've done with the ceiling. A little skylight really brightens up the place. Abruptly, he was struck by a tremendous burst of yellow lightning that gathered in his hand. Naruto calmly said, if this anything like the Chidori, I should be able to block it easily, as he swiftly countered by forming a Rasengan. Suzaku roared, are you ready? Before charging Naruto and bringing his arm, which was covered in yellow sparking energy, backwards, storm of torment. When Suzaku got to Naruto, he launched his attack forward. Naruto successfully deflected the attack for a brief moment with a Rasengan, but Suzaku then changed his aim away from Naruto in what seemed to be a missed attack. As Naruto smirked and pushed forward with his Rasengan, volts of electricity shot through his entire body, causing it to freeze. He let out a cry and fell to the ground on one knee, his body writhing in agony. The panting Naruto was utterly confused by the turn of events and looked up to confront his smirking opponent. As he attempted to get better, Naruto thought, I could have sworn he missed me. In an attempt to restore the lost sensation and wait for the numbness in his body to go away, he stayed motionless and began to wiggle his fingers. I bet you're wondering how my attack succeeded even though you managed to avoid contact. You'll find that the energy will seek you out like lightning to a rod, Suzaku said, maintaining the same arrogant gaze on Naruto and speaking in a tone of superiority. His extraordinary speed and reaction time must be due to his lightning nature and affinity. Even I can't afford to take another attack like that, so that's my only choice, Naruto thought. You should take pride in being the first person ever to survive my technique, but you won't be able to withstand another, the blonde-haired demon said, lifting his hand into the air once more in preparation for another attack. As Naruto's limbs began to feel better, he thought, that's it, keep talking, you fool. Considering you're a coward who hides in the shadows, I find that believable. His tone shifted to one of annoyance as Suzaku scowled and said, we saint beasts are no cowards. We are demon warriors of the highest caliber. Yeah, that's exactly why no one knows of your skills and identities. You only fight weaklings who won't live to tell the tale of your exploits. That's exactly why I'm going to destroy you, replied Naruto. Are all guild mages this stupid? Warriors much more talented that you have fallen at my feet, and because of their sheer stupidity. All bark and no bite. What makes you think you are any different? Shouted Suzaku. As the lighting element green armor developed over Naruto's body, green light and lightning sparks surrounded him. You're the fool. Why you've been blabbering about? I've gained enough time to turn this fight in my favor. Your strength is now my strength. Armor of the Halo. Daorei. He exclaimed. Naruto emerged with a Nodashi in a crouching position as the light faded. I can't believe I made such a foolish mistake. No matter, even with your armor you are still no match for me, said Suzaku. Instead of answering, Naruto sheathed his blade behind his back and abruptly disappeared from view. After Suzaku looked around, Naruto suddenly materialized in front of him and punched the solar plexus too quickly for Suzaku to stop. Naruto moved behind the demon as he stumbled backwards, sweeping his feet out from under him before reappearing in front of him and kicking him straight up in the air. Reappearing above Suzaku upside down, Naruto nailed him with a vertical kick across the back, sending him crashing into the ground as Suzaku flew up. Naruto saw Suzaku straining to get to his feet as he landed. The true power of your armor is quite terrifying. Its lightning nature has your speed up your reflexes and given you a tremendous boost in raw speed. As I am now, I would not be able to keep up with you over the long haul. However, I have just the technique for this. Suzaku unexpectedly sank to the ground with his left leg in front of his face. He held his hands clasped, his index fingers touching and extending. At the tips of his fingers, a flash of red energy appeared, then spread throughout his entire body. As his body divided into 7 parts, the blonde, blonde-haired demon laughed. Can you guess? Began the single center. The far left continued, which one of us? Finishing the one to the right of center is the real Suzaku? We all are. The 7 Suzakus exclaimed, still laughing. Black secret technique. The prism of 7. Unlike your pathetic technique, we are not copies or shadows. Each Suzaku possesses its own free will, which makes for a rather destructive combination of attacks. This is terrible. If I remove the armor, I can fight the superior numbers with shadow clones, but I'll be vulnerable to his lightning strikes. As he pulled his blade out of its sheath, Naruto thought, I'll have to wait for him to expose the weakness in this technique. Naruto hurried past the 7 Suzakus, using his lightning crackling blade to slice and dice them. Even though he was outnumbered, he was still quicker and stronger than each Suzaku, and he was able to deal his enemies some nasty wounds, taking out 5 of them before the final 2 knocked him back. Looking back to admire his work, he saw that he had severely wounded the original, as evidenced by the way it continued to complain about its wounds. The copies abruptly turned into energy and returned to his body, healing the wounds. Damn you, I don't know how managed to find me, let alone inflict so much damage. However, it doesn't matter in the long run. Prism of 7 restoration. The Prism of 7 was then reformed by him. Another great aspect of this technique, I can use the energy of my copies to heal myself before reforming them all over again. Do you now understand the direness of your situation? Asked Suzaku. Naruto shot back, yeah, I'll just have kill all 7 of you. All 7 of them yelled, not if we destroy you first, as they leapt into the air in preparation for a storm of torment attacks. Prism Storm of Torment. To the surprise of all 7 Suzaku, Naruto brought his blade forward and used it to absorb all of their arrow. Like lightning strikes. Immediately, the power absorbed from the attacks caused his armor to crackle with lightning. A slash. Like burst of lightning shot from Naruto's blade before splitting into 7, each of which nailed a Suzaku in the chest. I should thank you. If you never released an attack with so much magical energy, I could never have channeled enough power to activate my most devastating attack in this armor. Since most of my magic power goes into maintaining my speed in this armor, I need some outside help to do this. Thunderbolt cut. The Suzaku copies disappeared, leaving the original dead Suzaku collapsed on the ground. You may have had S-class power, but you're nothing more than a 1. Trick pony. Naruto marched across the room to the safe, his armor quickly dissipating. He started to open it after forming a Rasengan. The Duke was stunned and unable to process what had just transpired as he looked in front of him. Well, sorry Duke, but it looks like this is the end of your games. Yes, we can't afford to associate with someone so far in the red. Before he and the first 3 gamblers disappeared, the third said, that's the least of his problems. With the ledger gone, his clients will be looking to eliminate the leak. Before he disappeared as well, Akira said, I'll expect my funds by tomorrow morning. The winning you got from the others should provide you enough to go into hiding. Good luck. Before he passed out, the Duke simply kept staring at him in shock. Before coming back from where it came from, a Naruto clone ducked into the room and grabbed him. Elfman saw Gray, Happy, and Natsu coming toward the front gate and grumbled, Oi! What took you guys so long? I got the ledger. With a few panties leaking out of his pockets, Gray grumbled, the stupid safe. It was full of women's underwear. Sucks for you. We got cheese whiz and fish, with a mouthful of cheese, Natsu boasted. Aye. Good fish, Happy said, chomping down on a fish. A window above them suddenly exploded, and Naruto and 2 clones jumped out with rucksacks full of stuff. He leapt over the gate and yelled, haul ass. My clones clogged all the drains on the deck this place with water spray tags. Gray exclaimed, you're still doing that wet bandit gag. As they fled in his wake. Naruto reportedly tried this once before and almost flooded 3 towns. When they were sufficiently far away, the real Naruto made a hand signal and exclaimed, it's a classic. Shortly after, there was a loud explosion. A clone of Naruto grinned sheepishly and said, oops. Sorry, boss, I guess those were explosive tags. The original said, damn it, well at least we cleared the building. Elfman said, you are so taking the fall for this one. It doesn't matter, the council loves me, Naruto said with a grin that was devilish. Lucy and Kyuubi had just left their client's house. The book was revealed to be Dear Kabi, just like in the manga, when she abruptly stopped, seemingly sensing that the mansion was about to blow up. Something tells me Naruto needs to be punished, and not in a good way, murmured Kyuubi. What was that? Lucy asked. She answered, nothing, nothing. I can't believe you turned down 2 million jewels, Lucy was grumbling. Don't worry, we're going to get paid. Naruto looted the Duke of Everlu's mansion on his way out. Kirby Melon just inherited 4 million from the Duke for services rendered by his father. We get our cut from that, responded Kyuubi. Lucy asked, won't we get in trouble for robbing him? Kyuubi responded with a laugh, I'm sure he's got bigger problems to worry about than reporting a robbery. According to current events, Duke was hanging in the middle of town by his panties on a flagpole. When he returned to his chair at the house of one Akira Rose, he was engulfed in a whirl of glittering light and revealed himself to be Mirajane. She asked her sister, who was seated at the desk in the office to her left, so what do you think? Suna is the butler for a corrupt nobleman, and Annalise is the assassin. Maid sent to do him in. She turns him to her side after discovering that he is actually the illegitimate son of the nobleman and true heir to his fortune. This is fantastic material. All I need is a few details. She continued with a pointed expression on her face. She screamed at her younger sister, I was talking about the money, and why don't you use your own sex life for material? The second book didn't sell as well as the others. I'm sure Natsu's gotten much better since then. That's not the point, besides I could always get it from Kana. Fine, same deal as last time. What do you do with all those Eastport pineapple slices and strawberry jam anyway? Asked Lasana. Mirajane's face flushed fiercely, and her eyes became hungry. Well, you slip the pineapple slices right over, she said. Lucy tried to stare down Naruto with the most menacing glare she could manage, as he continued to scrawl on the scroll on the table before him. Her fellow blonde simply ignored her. The other empty seat at the table across from the bar was occupied by a sheathed blade. He ignored her for the next few minutes, and then she blew up. Give it to me, Lucy insisted. Despite not even looking up from his writing, Naruto responded, I told you I'm going not to give it away for free. Not without a good reason anyway. Lucy complained, but you can't even use it, I own tons of stuff I can't use, shrugged Naruto. She pretended to be intrigued and said, HMPH, what are you working on anyway? Well, this is a very complex plan. But it boils down to making my clones more durable so I can mimic the Prism of 7 technique, replied Naruto. Prism of 7? She asked, giving him a blank expression now. It was a technique used by the guy that first fought on the Duke of Everlu job, he responded. This immediately brought Lucy and Naruto back to their disagreement. He discovered a rather uncommon gate key in the loot from that job, but he refused to give it to her. He would sell it to her, but only for a ridiculous amount of money. She tried everything to get him to give up the key, but to no avail. Perhaps Kyuubi might have some ideas, she thought, considering an alternative strategy. Another redhead girl was now yelling commands as she walked through the guild. I heard you guys have been causing trouble again. The master may forgive you, but I won't, she said. Who is she? Lucy stumbled, taken aback by her menacing appearance. That's Urza. She's really strong, answered Happy, who had walked up next to her. Kana, that is inappropriate drinking posture, Urza said, turning to face her. Kana shifted her position quickly and grunted, Visitor, if you are going to dance, do it outside. Wakaba, your cigarette butts are all over the floor, Urza said as she advanced, aiming for another pair of criminals. Urza sighed and threw back her hair, saying, you guys give me so much trouble, but I won't say anything for today. She then turned to face the request board and said, Nav. Are you still hanging around the board? Pick a job already. You've said a lot already, Lucy thought. What is she, the disciplinary enforcer or something? Happy said, no, she's Urza, as though that clarified everything. Naruto got up and grabbed the blade from the vacant chair, saying, pardon me a moment. Urza glared at Lucy as he marched straight across the room to her and stopped a few feet in front of her. Lucy gave him a fierce retort and held out her hand. Lucy said, does he have a death wish or something? Happy answered, well, pretty much everyone fears her except for one person. Who? Lucy asked. Who else? Asked Happy, nodding in Naruto's direction. Then she realized that the whole guild had fallen silent, with everyone's attention on the blonde and the armored redhead's stare down. Abruptly, Naruto put the sheathed blade in Urza's extended hand. She unsheathed the blade and ran her finger along its edge without turning her head away from him. Urza raised the blade and cut down, but Naruto's finger stopped him. After retreating, she swung the sword in a barrage of motions that were hard to track. Even more astounding was the fact that Naruto kept using his finger to block each and every one of them. Happy said, wow, look at them go. Urza halted abruptly, sheathed the blade, and fastened it to her belt. It's over. I wanted to see more. Natsu, who had approached from behind, complained. After Naruto abruptly put his hand in his pocket, Happy said, no wait. All right. Naruto put his finger away. Now it's over. Lucy almost jumped out of her face. Quickly approaching Urza, Naruto gave the girl a hug and whispered something in her ear, causing her cheeks to blush slightly. She whispered to him, "Wait, I have something to take care of first." Then, as she looked around the guild, she moved in his embrace until his arm was around her. "Where are Natsu and Gray?" Happy said, "Over here," and pointed to the two of them. The two screamed, "Traitor!" before putting an arm around each other's backs and forcing a fake smile. Hey Urza. We're being good to each other like always." Gray stumbled as Natsu and he both started to perspire. Natsu agreed and added, "I." Natsu became like Happy. Lucy cried in disbelief. When she turned to face Lasana at the bar, she heard someone laughing behind her and said, "It's pretty funny, huh? Natsu and Gray are afraid of Urza." Lucy questioned, "Why?" Lasana responded, "Natsu picked a fight with Urza and got beaten up." "No way." Lucy cried. Lasana went on, "She caught Gray walking around naked and beat him up too." Lucy said, "Well, that makes some sense." Lasana went on, "Loki hit on her and nearly died." Lucy pointed to Naruto and said, "Oh my. Wait a minute. Then how did that guy become her boyfriend? Then. He's as undisciplined as they come." "Well. He does like to joke around and have fun, but he's a much more complex person than you think," Lucy responded. Urza smiled broadly at Natsu and Gray. "I'm glad to see you guys are doing great. I actually have a favor to ask the both of you. I heard something troubling on my last job. Usually I would consult the master first, but since he's out right now I'm going on ahead with what I think is best. I need your help. You'll come with me, right?" Naruto pouted and said, "What about me?" She smirked and said, "You were already coming. You don't have a choice." He shrugged and remarked, "Somehow, I don't find that offensive." As she and Naruto turned to depart, she said, "We're leaving tomorrow, so get ready. I'll let you know the specifics while we're on our way." Why? Stumbled Gray, unable to think clearly. Natsu snarled, "I never said I'd come," but his protest went unanswered. "Those four together all on the same team. I never imagined it, but that could possibly be the strongest team in Fairy Tail," said Lasana. Lucy asked, not fully appreciating the skill of her new acquaintances and friends. "Hey Lucy, could you do me a favor? Could you tag along with them?" Lasana responded. Lucy answered, "Me? What could I do?" "Well, the group might be a volatile mix, and it would be good to have a mediator. Plus I'm sure the situation could present itself for Naruto to give you that key you want so much," she went on. Lucy inquired, "So where are they leaving from?" At the Magnolia Town train station, the morning was almost ordinary. Trains and passengers flowed in and out to get to their different locations. Given that two teenagers were on the verge of starting a full-scale fight in the center of the station, it was practically an ordinary morning. Natsu snarled, "Why the hell did that monster Urza need our help?" "How should I know? Besides, if she needed help, I alone would be sufficient," replied Gray. "You two are idiots. If she only needed a little help she wouldn't have dragged Naruto along too," sighed Lucy. Her observation was disregarded. "Well, you can just go by yourself." "I don't want to go," Natsu screamed. Gray responded, "Fine, don't come. Urza can just kill you afterward," as the two began punching each other, bringing down a fruit stand in the process. Lucy yelled, "You two idiots are just looking for an excuse to fight, so shut up," which put an end to their argument. "Geez, why can't you two just get along?" Natsu asked, "Why are you here anyway?" as the two ceased their altercation and exchanged blank glances with Lucy. Lucy said, "I was asked to come. My skills might really come in handy," as she turned away from them, afraid to meet their eyes. Natsu deadpanned, "You were bribed again, weren't you?" She said, "I'll have you know," once more in a furious tone before a cunning smile appeared on her face. "Oh Urza.san. Over here," she exclaimed, gesturing to no specific person. With panicked expressions on their faces, Gray and Natsu yelled together, "We're best friends. We like to hang out together," as they embraced one another. When Lucy saw them, she burst out laughing. "You cheated on us," the pair cried. Lucy chuckled and said, "Perhaps you two do get along after all." "No way. Why the hell does she have to come along? My stomach is starting to hurt," murmured Gray. Then Happy said, "Want some fish?" "No," exclaimed Gray. Natsu looked blankly at Lucy and asked, "Why are you here again?" Lucy yelled, "Were you not listening at all? I swear, you..." She began, but Urza interrupted her. Redhead said, "Sorry, did I make you wait?" Lucy gasped, "Too much luggage," as she was overwhelmed by the amount of stuff Urza was hauling behind her. Naruto walked up, trembling at the sight, and asked, "Did you run out of sealing scrolls again?" "Maybe," Urza said, blushing slightly. Naruto began to store her luggage in one of his extra scrolls, complaining, "And people call me irresponsible." Lucy began, "Well, from what I've seen," but Naruto interrupted her. Lucy immediately stopped talking when she said, "If you have any desires of getting your hands on that key, you won't finish that sentence." Then she saw the interest Urza was showing her. Urza asked inquisitively, "You were in Fairy Tail yesterday?" Naruto sealed another suitcase and said, "She's a newbie." Natsu exclaimed, "A total noob." Happy added, the NOO biased of NOOBS. Angry Lucy yelled, "Hey, I've been on 2 missions." After introducing herself, she bowed to Urza and said, "Ignore them, I'm a new member Lucy." Natsu reprimanded him, "Told you she was a noob." Happy added, the NOOB queen is what she is." Naruto said, "At one point she was a nude noob." "Stop that!" Lucy yelled. "Hey, I only called you a noob, they called you a noob in ANOOB," argued Naruto. Urza laughed at their antics. "Hi, I'm Urza, nice to meet you. You're the one the guild members were talking about yesterday. You defeated that mercenary gorilla on a mission. Very promising." "That's not entirely accurate," said Lucy, who was a little anxious. Ignoring Lucy, Urza said, "This mission might be a bit risky, but based on your past performance I think you can handle it." "Risky?" Lucy cried out in alarm. "How on earth have I gotten myself into this situation?" "HMPH, I don't know what the task is this time, but I'll go on one condition. You must compete with me in a challenge," said Natsu. "Not again." Gray groaned. "Huh?" Lucy asked, utterly disoriented. Natsu likes to challenge strong members of the guild to random contests. His current record against Urza and Naruto is 147 losses and 3 wins, told Happy. "And that's only because Urza let him win those 3 times so she could do something important," said Naruto. "A self-assured Natsu exclaimed, "I've become stronger and my luck has improved. I'm not the same as I used to be." "Okay." Urza concurred. The others in the group were shocked by her acceptance and stammered, "Okay? I can tell you've become strong, it's only fair that you have the opportunity to prove it. We'll have a spar," Urza replied. "Deal!" exclaimed a giddy Natsu. With the 5 mages and 1 talking cat riding in comfort on the train, Gray shook his hand and looked at Natsu's sleeping form, saying, "You're so hopeless, Natsu." "Well, it is an improvement over him moaning and groaning the whole way there," said Happy. "It's still pathetic that he can't handle a train ride without sleeping pills," said Gray. "More pathetic that not being able to finish a mission with your pants on?" asked Naruto, raising an eyebrow. "It's a brilliant piece of magic how you make your clothes disappear," said Happy. Everyone laughed at Gray's expense when Natsu, mid-snore, lifted his hand and gave the blue cat a high five. "That reminds me, I haven't seen too much magic from other mages since I've joined. What kind of magic do you do, Urza-san?" asked Lucy. Urza corrected, "You can just call me Urza," Happy exclaimed. "Urza's magic is beautiful. Plenty of blood comes out at the end, her opponent's blood." Lucy, who was moaning and had a big drop of perspiration, asked, "How is that beautiful?" "It's nothing special. I think Gray's magic is more beautiful," Urza said. "It is?" Lucy said, turning to face Gray. HMPH, Gray slammed his fist into his palm, forming the fairy tale symbol with his ice magic. "It's ice magic." "Wah, cool," Lucy said. Urza joked, "Ice doesn't really suit you though." Gray turned away from her and complained, "Who cares?" Lucy glanced at Gray and then at Natsu, whispering, "Ice. Flame. No wonder you guys don't get along. You're so straightforward and cute." Urza raised an eyebrow and laughed amusedly, "Is that so?" Gray complained, "Who cares about that? We need to get ready, Urza. You usually don't put together big teams like this." "What's going on?" replied Naruto. "Yeah, let me explain. I was on my way back from my last job when I stopped at a bar in Onibus. Mages usually gather there and some folks caught my attention. They were talking about something called lullaby and how they were trying to unseal it," replied Urza. Lucy asked, "Lullaby? Could that be some magic that puts people to sleep?" "I don't know, but it must be powerful since it's sealed," Urza replied. "So some folks wanted to break the seal on some unknown magic. Maybe that's all it was. Their job, nothing special," said Gray. "Yes, that's what I first thought as well, until I remembered they mentioned the name Aragorn. The ace of Mage Guild Eisenwald, Shinigami Aragorn," replied Urza. "Shinigami!" Lucy cried out in terror. It's a nickname he earned from taking up assassination requests. The council prevents guilds from taking assassination requests, but Eisenwald chose money. So then 6 years ago the guild was ousted from the Mage Guild League and categorized as a dark guild, told Naruto. Lucy started to perspire nervously and asked, "Dark guild?" Happy exclaimed, "Lucy, your skin is producing juice." "It's sweat," she clarified. A more subdued Gray muttered, "I see." Lucy asked, "Wait, you say ousted, but didn't they get punished?" "They were. Eisenwald's master was arrested and the rest of the guild ordered to shut down," stated Urza. The absurdity of the order made Naruto snort, saying, like that was really going to stop them. Most dark guilds keep functioning regardless of the order to shut down. Lucy said in a panic, "Maybe I should sit this one out." Happy asked, "Turning back again?" Urza sighed. "It was a blunder on my part. If only I had remembered the name Aragorn back at the bar." Grinning, Naruto dismissed her worry, saying, "Don't worry about it. Besides, it wouldn't be fair if you hogged all the fun for yourself. Yeah, if it was just those guys at the bar, then you could have handled it, but you did right thing if we're going after an entire guild," said Gray. Naruto's cheeky grin turned into an insane one as he said, "You made the right call, we can't overlook this situation. We're marching into Eisenwald." "Sounds interesting." Gray smirked and said it casually. Lucy, still perspiring, complained, "I shouldn't have come. This is way over my head." Happy cautioned, "You're producing too much juice." Lucy shot back, "Stop calling it juice." The traveling group was now heading into town after getting off the train at their stop. Then Urza stopped abruptly and looked down at Naruto suspiciously, saying, "You're a clone. Where's the real you?" "What are you talking about? I'm not a," he began, but Urza interrupted him with a swift punch. Happy shouted, "Natsu's not here either. Incoming." Gray barely had time to turn before Natsu struck him, landing on top of Gray's back in a perfect standing position. Natsu walked away from Gray after he yelled, "Get off me," but not before stepping on the back of his head. "Where's Naruto?" Urza insisted. Natsu abruptly put his scarf over his face and clasped his hands together in what appeared to be a fictitious hand signal, saying, "He's on a ninja mission. Digazaru. Our cunning leader has come back. Nin nin," Happy added, engaging in the same stunts. Lucy screamed, "Cut that out," as she tried to strike Natsu in the head. As he skillfully sidestepped the blow, Natsu chanted, "Combat flows like water. Digazaru. Move like a butterfly and sting like when an old man pees." "Nin nin," said Happy. Lucy shook her head at the two and complained, "And we've lost them." "Ninja mission?" Gray asked. Deep in contemplation, Urza whispered, "He found a lead." Before looking up and whistling as he moved through the largely deserted train, Kageyama made sure the package was securely fastened in his pack. When he got to where the fairy tale mages had been sitting, he noticed that they had been replaced by a strange man with silver hair that defied gravity who was reading an orange book. The man had on a dark, colored face mask that covered his entire face except for his right eye and an odd headband that slanted over his left eye.
That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this great story. See you in the next one.